Chapter 4963. Why? Xiaohua looked at Bai Fei and asked curiously, could it be that there are other benefits to going to the Lost Land? Fellow Taoist, please listen to my explanation. Bai Fei said confidently, I think that first, this nascent soul cultivation method is based on spiritual roots after all, and we cultivators may not be able to use it. Xiaohua's expression changed and he nodded blankly, that's right, fellow Taoist Bai is right. Second. Bai Fei continued, you, me, and even Taoist Yuan Kong and other rogue cultivators, forget it, Taoist Yuan Kong has already explained this reason, so I won't repeat it again. In short, I'd rather be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix. We're just insignificant nascent soul cultivators in the Heaven Alliance, but in the Lost Land we'll become nascent soul cultivators. That seems reasonable. Xiaohua hesitated, but then he hurriedly said, since it's the Lost Land, the spiritual herbs inside are also rare, right? If we go, wouldn't we be inferior to the Heaven Alliance? I haven't been there, so I can't talk nonsense here. Bai Fei said, however, I think that since the Tao sect has declined, spiritual herbs will definitely grow all over the mountains and plains, and no one will recognize them. Maybe there will even be spiritual herbs that are thousands of years old. Maybe. Xiaohua answered vaguely. Finally, Bai Fei said sincerely, regardless of whether you go or not, I'm prepared to go. And I believe that my decision won't be wrong. When I go to the Lost Land I'll definitely be alone. Taoist Yuan Kong Zhuang Qin and Beauty Yu, I feel that they're not as reliable as you, so I need your help. What? You need my help? Hearing this, Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and he pointed to his nose and asked. Yes, I do have the idea of borrowing your strength. Bai Fei said, and don't worry, I'll definitely give you enough benefits. Hehe, I'm looking forward to what benefits you can give me. That will tempt I. Xiaohua laughed. Before you make a decision, before you swear a blood oath to pledge your loyalty to me, I can't easily reveal this benefit. Bai Fei said in all seriousness, however, fellow Taoist, don't worry. Regardless of whether you decide or not, I can hand these 3 jade slips over to you first. After saying that, Bai Fei took out 2 jade slips and handed them over to Xiaohua. Xiaohua reached out his hand and took a look. Then he shook his head and said, I can't take these 3 jade slips. As he spoke, he returned the 3 jade slips to Bai Fei. Bai Fei smiled and asked, what do you mean, fellow Taoist? Nothing else. Xiaohua said with a smile, if I do not intend to go, then wouldn't I be able to find this cultivation technique jade slip anywhere? If I decide to go and arrive at the lost place, wouldn't this jade slip still belong to I? I have no reason to take this item now. Do I still have to consider whether to go or not? Haha, fellow Taoist is right. Bai Fei laughed and was about to take back the jade slip. But at this time, Xiaohua probed again. Of course, if fellow Taoist Bai is willing to sell the nascent soul cultivation technique to I for the price of 10 top-grade crystals, I will also be very happy. Of course. Bai Fei did not hesitate to give a jade slip to Xiaohua and took 10 top-grade crystals from Xiaohua's hand. Xiaohua happily received the jade slip and said with cupped hands, I will take my leave. After I consider it, I will tell fellow Taoist Bai. Okay, I will wait for the good news. Bai Fei stood up and said with a smile. After Xiaohua left the quiet room, Bai Fei opened the restriction and could not help but ask, Xiao Yu, what do you think of this Taoist master Xiao? This guy is very cunning. Xiao Yu's voice sounded, and he is also very cautious. He is obviously moved, but he still does not want to be controlled by you. I am not afraid of him being cunning, nor am I afraid of him not going after taking the cultivation technique. Bai Fei said with a smile, I understand the situation of a loose cultivator. In the Yilin continent, there are too few loose cultivators who can stand out. No matter how much he cultivates, it is not good for him to stand out. But when he reaches the Dawn Rain continent, it will be different. The moment he appears, he will be a strong cultivator. He will like that feeling. Moreover, when I give him enough benefits, how can he not bow his head? Master, don't think too much. Xiao Yu reminded, let's see if he goes or not first. He will go. He will definitely go. Bai Fei did not doubt his own vision and replied with certainty. Of course, Xiaohua, who returned to the quiet room, also threw the jade slip in his hand with interest and said with a smile, why do you need to convince me? I will definitely go to the Lost Land. However, I did not expect that you would actually want to recruit me. Moreover, the cultivation technique you gave me is actually incomplete. You're too scheming, aren't you? When I reach the Dawn Rain continent, if I want to cultivate without a complete cultivation technique, won't I still have to rely on you? You are so sure that I will not find a complete cultivation technique in the Heaven Alliance? Forget it, let's not think about this. After Xiaohua laughed, he sat down cross-legged and thought to himself, I will take advantage of these few days to make up for the last primordial spirit cultivation technique. Bai Fei and Xiaohua each had their own plans. After the beautiful Beauty Yu entered the quiet room, she also stood in the middle of the empty quiet room and did not speak for a long time. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Beauty Yu's figure suddenly moved. Under her snow-white clothes, a thick black aura surged out with a whoosh. This black aura gradually enveloped her graceful body. Crack, crack, crack. A sound like an eggshell cracking sounded. In the black aura, the lines that attracted the attention of countless male cultivators broke and caved in. Then a silver-white wolf darted out of the black aura. Damn it. The wolf sprang out, stretched lazily, and spoke the language of the 10,000 demon realm. This human body is really too burdensome. If it wasn't for the fact that I was worried that my true appearance would be seen through by the human cultivators, I wouldn't have bothered to make these disgusting things. Sigh, the humans in this heaven realm are really too powerful. Although I haven't seen many people as powerful as His Honor in these years, just these human cultivators almost saw through my disguise. If I meet their so-called Heaven Alliance Master or Tao Alliance Master, will they find out that I'm not a human at a glance? Could it be that their strength has reached the great saint realm of my 10,000 demon realm? His Honor often said that although the human race's physical body is weak, they are good at using external objects. Their cultivation speed is much faster than the demon races. Could it be that there are more great sages of the human race in this Tao realm than in the 10,000 demon realm? Damn it, I'm scared just thinking about it. Why did I dare to enter the heaven realm that day? Speaking of this, the wolf cub rolled on the ground a few times without any posture, as if it was stretching its legs. After a while, it strolled to the front of the jade table and looked at the spirit fruit on it with disdain, whispering, "What kind of spirit fruit is this? It has no taste at all. I don't know why these humans like it so much. Sigh, His Honor, it's been a few hundred years. When will His Honor come and pick me up?" However, speaking of this, the wolf cub trembled again and lay down on the futon, not daring to talk to itself anymore. Instead it thought to itself, let's not rush and let His Honor come and pick me up. If I can't complete His Honor's task, even if His Honor comes, I won't dare to go back. Moreover, His Honor vaguely revealed that this little fox is very important. It seems that there are other great saints who want to capture her. However, it's strange. With His Honor's Snow Wolf King identity, why would he be afraid of other great saints? Could it be the two great saints of the Origin clan? If it's the two great saints of the Origin clan, why don't they do it? Why must the Wolf clan's great saint do it? Damn it, this is so unfair. If it wasn't for this task, how could I have been stranded in the 10,000 demon realm for hundreds of years? It's a pity that these hundreds of years have been wasted in the Tao celestial realm. The power of the stars and moon here is far inferior to that of the 10,000 demon realm. Moreover, under the rule of the humans, I dare not draw more power of the stars down. I remember that once I met a Mahayana cultivator. If it wasn't for my cleverness and the secret technique that His Honor bestowed upon me, I'm afraid I would have become his wolfskin vest. Could it be that this hateful little fox is really in the Lost Land? In these hundreds of years, I've traveled all over the Yilin continent and used the Wolf Clan's secret technique countless times. However, I've never found any trace of her. It seems that I can only go there and take a look. But the problem was, how could she have fallen in that place? When His Honor and I caught up with her in the Origin Grotto Heaven, she had just entered the spatial tunnel. How could there be such a huge gap in just half a cup of tea's time? Besides, the Wuming Mountain Range's reputation is not for nothing. I don't know how the humans feel. I've just approached the depths of the mountain range and haven't seen any teleportation tunnel yet. The terrifying aura of the soul beasts in there is enough to make my heart jump out of my chest. How could I dare to take the risk? If it wasn't for this operation by the Immortal Alliance, I really wouldn't know what to do. Who cares? I'll just follow behind these humans and use the teleportation tunnel to pass through the Wuming Mountain Range. What does it have to do with me if they want to pass down their orthodoxies and cultivation techniques? I just need to find the little fox's trace. Thinking of this, the silver wolf suddenly turned over and stood up from the futon. He looked in the direction of the quiet room with a trace of doubt on his face. He thought to himself, the question is, are the human cultivators going to the abandoned land really only in the golden core and nascent soul stages? Why do I feel that the human cultivator called Taoist Master Xiao is a little strange? Although his strength is only at the middle stage of the nascent soul stage, he has a familiar demonic aura on his body. Although this aura is very faint, but with the Supreme One's secret technique and my demonic instincts, I can still recognize it. Could it be that this Taoist Master Xiao is also a demonic incarnation like me? But if he is a demonic incarnation, why isn't he afraid of being seen through by the humans? Oh, I understand now. He might have a strong demonic bloodline and cultivated the secret technique of my demonic race according to this bloodline. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward and... Chapter 4964. Thunderbolt Immortal wanted to say more, but he looked outside and smiled. Your selection is finally here. Looks like the Defeat You Immortal Alliance is serious. This place isn't simple. Hee. Xiaohua smiled and looked outside. No matter how simple it is, this selection is meaningless to you and me. I am just going through the motions to accompany them to the Wuming Mountain Range. I'm leaving. Thunderbolt Immortal patted his stomach. This Dao seed is quite interesting. I will slowly cultivate it. Thunderbolt Immortal flashed into the Xinhua continent. Outside Xiaohua's room, there was a fluctuation. Clearly, a disciple of the Defeat You Immortal Alliance came to call for him. Xiaohua got up and activated the command medallion to open the door of the quiet room. At this time, Bai Fei, Zhuangqin, and Beauty Yu had already come out. Only the door of Taoist Yuankong's quiet room hadn't been opened. The corner of Xiaohua's mouth slightly curled up into a smile. He understood that as the leader, coming out a bit late and making others wait was something that should be done. Has fellow Taoist made a decision? Bai Fei looked at Taoist Yuankong's room with disdain and asked Xiaohua. Xiaohua did not hesitate as if he had already made a decision. After seeing fellow Taoist's cultivation method, I have decided to go to the Lost Land. However, as for what blood oath or loyalty, I haven't thought about it yet. Let's wait until we reach the Lost Land. No problem. Bai Fei smiled. I'll wait for that day. At this time, with a whoosh, the door to Taoist Yuankong's room flashed and he walked out. Seeing the four people waiting at the door, Taoist Yuankong's eyes revealed a smile. However, a trace of panic appeared on his face as he said, this old man was too engrossed in thinking about the selection and actually made everyone wait for so long. This is truly a sin, a sin. Bai Fei smiled and said, Senior has racked his brains for us to choose this place. We are the ones in the wrong for slacking off in the quiet room. This by thanks Senior here. That's right. Fellow Taoist Yuankong is truly diligent and responsible. This poor Taoist feels that choosing you to be our leader was truly the right choice. Xiaohua added fuel to the fire, smiling as he complimented. Zhuangqin blinked and said in an honest voice, Senior Yuankong has always been like this. Looking at Zhuangqin, who cherished his words like gold, if not for Xiaohua's cultivation completely recovered, he would never have thought that Zhuangqin was actually possessed by a devil. Senior Yuankong, the cultivators in the quiet room have already left. Let's not delay. Beauty Yu reminded. That's right, let's go. Let's hurry. We don't want to fall behind and leave a bad impression on the special envoy. Jinren Yuankong nodded and waved his hand. By the time Taoist Yuankong brought Xiaohua and the others to the deck of the flying ship, all the cultivators had already gathered, filling the deck to the brim. Xiaohua and the others stood at the very back. Taoist Yuankong wanted to move closer, but since all the cultivators were standing still, he was too embarrassed to move. Xiaohua didn't look at the crowd. Instead, he looked outside the airship. At this time, the flying ship had already activated its defensive formation. Beyond the faint green light, there was a grayish-yellow sky. In the sky, there were hurricanes that blotted out the sun and the moon. Numerous fist-sized vortexes were like eyes in the sky, staring at the flying ship from afar. Where is this? Xiaohua was a little puzzled. Although he could see through the array with his naked eyes without using his spiritual force, he could also see that the area within a radius of a few miles was filled with whirlpools. However, he still did not know where he was in the Yilin continent. After saying that, Du Peng really saluted all around. At this moment, the cultivators on the flying boat could no longer stand still. Most of the cultivators recruited by Defeat You Immortal Alliance were Yuanyin cultivators, and 30% of them were Jindan cultivators. Du Peng was a Fengshan cultivator, their senior. When had they ever seen a Fengshan cultivator salute them? The group of cultivators all hurriedly returned the salute. Senior is too polite. To be able to contribute to Defeat You Immortal Alliance, to be able to contribute to our Heaven Alliance, it is our duty and our fortune. Good. Du Peng stood up and looked around. After looking around, he sighed and said, with your sincerity, why would our Tao sect be afraid of the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth? You are the hope of our Heaven Alliance and also the backbone of our Heaven Alliance. This old man is not as good as you. When the cultivators heard this, their backs straightened as if they had eaten a spiritual pill. Facing your imposing manner, this old man can't even say a single word that I had prepared long ago. Du Peng shouted again, because those words are nothing compared to your courage to move forward. They're just dust. This old man might as well be lazy and not say any polite words. Disciples? Yes. The group of Jindan cultivators and Foundation establishment cultivators guarding the flying ship responded in unison. Present the thank you gift of Defeat You Immortal Alliance to the seniors. Du Peng waved his hand and said, also let them see the sincerity of our Defeat You Immortal Alliance. We can't let them work for our Defeat You Immortal Alliance and our Heaven Alliance empty-handed. Yes. The group of disciples responded, took the utensils, and flew to various places according to the arranged order. Every time they flew in front of a cultivator, they would take out a storage ring from the utensils and send it to the cultivator's eyes. Xiao Hua and the others were the last, but the cultivators who had taken the storage rings earlier all cried out in surprise when they used their divine senses to take a look. Ah! Hee hee. When the rest of the cultivators who had not taken the storage rings heard the exclamations, how could they not know that the things in the storage rings were abundant? Each of them revealed a smile. Their courage to take the lead had long disappeared, leaving behind only greed. By the time Xiao Hua obtained the storage ring, all the cultivators on the flying ship had already probed the storage ring with their divine senses and were counting the things inside. Although Xiao Hua didn't care, he couldn't help but be a little surprised when he probed the storage ring with his divine sense. The number of medicinal pills, crystal stones and so on inside was indeed beyond his expectations. Hee, the aura of this Du Peng hidden in his body seems very familiar. I'm afraid he's the human who was possessed by that so-called demon general Lord Ji Peng. This guy hid extremely well, and it seems like he's actually the special envoy of Defeat You Immortal Alliance. He's doing much better than this demon general by my side. Xiao Hua pretended to look at the storage rings and glanced at Zhuang Chen from the corner of his eyes, thinking curiously, I wonder what's the relationship between this demon general and Ji Peng. Why didn't he acknowledge Ji Peng? Could it be that his plans are different from Ji Peng's? Interesting. Could it be that the demon realm is similar to the human realm with different powers? Or could it be that these demons left behind in the Yilin continent are not the subordinates of the same demon lord? If that's the case, this Xiao can't act rashly and alert the enemy. Let's wait and see what exactly they plan to do. Who knows, we might even be able to bait a great demon. After a while, seeing that everyone was satisfied with the storage rings, Du Peng opened his mouth and said, I'm sure that when everyone came here, you've already heard from my Immortal Alliance disciples that not all fellow Taoists can pass the selection and obtain the qualifications to enter the Lost Lands. This old man also made them promise to all of you that regardless of whether you pass or not, you will receive rewards from my Immortal Alliance. This storage ring is the fulfillment of this old man's promise to all of you. Many thanks, Lord Special Envoy. Everyone shouted excitedly. But then Du Peng's tone suddenly changed and a wave of cold air enveloped the entire flying boat. However, this old man will also say the ugly words first. Since my Defeat You Immortal Alliance has treated all of you generously, you can't let my Defeat You Immortal Alliance down. This old man doesn't wish for anyone to not put in effort during the selection and try to slack off, only wanting to take the storage rings and use the excuse of not being able to pass the selection to escape to the Lost Lands. As long as this old man discovers such a situation, I will definitely not ask a single word and will immediately kill them. There was no lack of cultivators who had such thoughts. At this moment, after hearing Du Peng's words, they couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Of course, deterrence was deterrence, there were definitely cultivators who did things their own way. It was up to Du Peng to find out what method he had. Du Peng raised his hand and pointed outside the flying boat and said, Everyone take a look, where is this? Many cultivators were like Xiao Hua, looking outside as soon as they reached the deck, but other than the whirlpool they couldn't see anything else. At this moment, hearing Du Peng's question, the entire place was silent for a moment, and no one answered. After half a cup of tea's time, a cultivator hesitantly replied, Senior, may I ask if this is the Heaven Wind Forbidden Area? Yes, this is the Heaven Wind Forbidden Area. As soon as this cultivator spoke, a dozen cultivators immediately woke up and exclaimed, Other than the Heaven Wind Forbidden Area, where would my Yilin continent have such a strange hurricane? Where would there be so many Heaven Wind whirlpools? Du Peng clapped his hands and said, Not bad, I didn't expect that there would be such a knowledgeable person among you. After hearing this answer, I have some confidence in this selection. With that, Du Peng pointed to the side of the flying boat and said, "In fact, this is not the real Heaven Wind Forbidden Area, but just a corner of the southeastern edge of the Forbidden Area. I believe that all of you know that the Heaven Wind Forbidden Area is not the Tao Integration Stage, Mahayana Stage and Tribulation Stage seniors of the Heavenly Alliance, who can't enter at will. If we go 100 miles deeper, not to mention our physical bodies, even this flying boat will be torn apart by the heaven wind." P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chidien, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and Chapter 4965. If that's the case, I'll have to test him during the selection. Maybe there's a chance for us to work together. With the techniques of the demon realm, can't we bribe a human with the bloodline of the demon realm? Even if he's a real demon, the inheritance of the Snow Wolf King, won't he be tempted? While thinking, the silver wolf unconsciously grew a scarlet tongue and licked the side of its mouth. It looked quite thirsty. Silver Wolf Beauty Yu's neighbor was naturally the early nascent soul cultivator Zhuang Chen. This nascent soul cultivator, who looked like a simple and honest farmer, was sitting cross-legged behind a jade table, staring blankly at the spirit fruit in front of him. After a full meal, he suddenly raised his head and stretched out his arm. A familiar demonic sense came out from his arm and scanned the space. Then the cultivator's head strangely turned around and his bones cracked. Boom! A faint demonic aura gushed out from all over Zhuang Chen's body. With this demonic aura, Zhuang Chen's human face began to slowly change. However, he didn't dare to be too presumptuous. When his face became ferocious, he stopped and let out a long sigh. In this sigh, a faint demonic fire gushed out. Damn it, I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. This human's body is too weak. Zhuang Chen's words were naturally in the language of the demon realm. It was very obscure. I've been possessing this body for too long. It's too tiring. What the hell is Ji Peng doing? Why did he limit it to a human nascent soul cultivator? Is he afraid that I'll see through his tricks? If I possessed a human's avatar, I wouldn't have to work so hard. After Zhuang Chen finished speaking, he didn't say anything else. After another hour, he retracted the demonic aura and returned to his human form. He sat cross-legged behind the jade table and took a few bites of the spirit fruit. Tui. Zhuang Chen spat out the spirit fruit in his mouth and shouted, "Damn it, it's disgusting." After saying that, Zhuang Chen jumped up and looked in a direction. "Ji Peng, I'm not done with you. The 4 regions of the Devil Realm have already discussed that no one is allowed to touch the Lost Lands. But you, relying on the fact that you're close to the Lost Land, you secretly stretched your tentacles there. What are you trying to do? Right now, the war between the demon realm and the human race is still far away. Could it be that you want to leave behind the demon fire in the Lost Land for the northern Jian Demon region? If your northern Jian Demon region makes a move, what about my southern Jian Demon region? My Lord Demon King told me to bring the demon soldiers over to take a look. He wants me to take advantage of the chaos to attack. Aren't you making things difficult for me?" After scolding, Zhuang Chen sat down angrily. After thinking for a while, he said to himself, "That's not right. I've already received the news, so why aren't there any movements from East Reed Devil region and West/Devil region? Could it be that they did not care about the Lost Land? Or had they already infiltrated the envoy's flying boat? I remember that a long time ago, there was a demon general in the West-Slaying Demon region who leaked a piece of news. They seemed to have found the remains of a demon lord who had fallen in the Yilin continent. They were preparing to find this remains. Could it be that they have already started to move? That's why they don't care about the Lost Lands? You want to revive the demon sovereign? The demons in the West-Slaying Demon region are really indulging in wild fantasies. On the Yilin continent, there are as many human cultivators in the Tao Alliance and Heaven Alliance as there are stars in the sky. Even if the demon lord is revived, wouldn't he still be killed by the human race? Why don't we let my Lord Demon King? When Zhuang Chen thought of this, he suddenly laughed. Damn it, they don't want to revive the demon lord. They're just afraid that the demons in the 3 demon regions will devour their demon lord. They're preparing to hide the remains of the demon lord. They're thinking too much. That's the body of a demon lord we're talking about. Of all the demons we've left behind in the Yilin continent, the strongest is only a demon king. Using the power of a demon king to devour a demon lord, they're really tired of living. Unless a demon emperor comes, then there's no way they can devour it. Of course, if it's the original body of the demon lord. Damn it, that's right, what is the original body of the demon lord? If it's the same as me, wouldn't I be able to reach the heavens in a single step? No, I must use this chance to find out. Even if I can't devour it completely, getting a piece of it is still a great opportunity. Those demon bastards from the eastern Ting demon region must have joined forces with the demons from the western Slaying demon region. One of them was the demon race's Silver Wolf, who received orders from the great sage Snow Wolf King to go to the Dawn Rain continent to find the little fox. The other was the demon race's demon general, who received orders from the demon world's demon king to go to the Dawn Rain continent to find out the layout of the northern Jian demon region. The two of them had very different goals from the Dao sect's purpose in going to the Lost Lands. Their performance was the most normal, thinking and scheming. But compared to the demon race's Silver Wolf and the demon race's Zhuang Qin, Jinren Yuan Kong, who should be going to the Lost Lands, seemed to be the most abnormal. He sat cross-legged behind the jade table, leisurely shaking his head. Sometimes he waved his hand and picked up a spirit fruit, sometimes he waved his hand and a cup of spirit wine fell into his hand. He raised his head and drank it all in one gulp. His mouth even sang a strange little song. It seemed that he was temporarily the leader of the 5 people, and was quite satisfied. I really don't know if one day he knew that his subordinates were actually human great sages, would he still be able to sit on the fishing platform like this? There was no need to talk about the other meditation rooms in detail. During the past 3 days, quite a number of cultivators had come over. No one knew what kind of story each cultivator had behind their backs. However, time didn't care about this, it always flowed forward like water. In the early morning of the 3rd day, there was a sound of a bugle horn, followed by a roar that soared into the sky. The heaven and earth spirit chi in the vicinity of 100 miles around the flying boat turned into a hurricane and rushed into the flying boat. Layers of clouds overflowed from the body of the flying boat, and rays of multicolored light flashed like water. Whoosh! The huge flying boat first trembled slowly, and a moment later, it turned into a huge light shadow in the air and rushed into the sky, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Already set off? Xiao Hua was recording the cultivation method when his eyes suddenly opened. Although there was no movement in the quiet room, the activation of the flying boat still caused Xiao Hua to feel something. I have to speed up. Xiao Hua only opened his eyes for a moment before closing them immediately. He thought to himself, after this selection, I will immediately head to the Wuming Mountain Range. I have to leave the cultivation method to the Heaven Alliance before I reach the Wuming Mountain Range. Xiao Hua still underestimated the size of the Yilan continent. The flying boat actually took several months. Not only did Xiao Hua finish modifying the primordial spirit integration cultivation method, he also worked together with the Thunderbolt Immortal to deduce the nascent soul cultivation method and primordial spirit cultivation method from beginning to end, correcting some small flaws in it. After doing all this, the Thunderbolt Immortal threw the 2 cultivation methods to the Xinhua continent's fortune gate and asked the disciples to copy the cultivation method into a jade slip. He then followed Xiao Hua into the quiet room and sat cross-legged in front of Xiao Hua. I heard that the Yilan continent is the most prosperous world of our Dao sect. Not only does it have the Heaven Alliance and the Dao Alliance, but it also has the cultivation method of the 9 transformations golden core. I'm very curious. The Dao Sovereign and the Dao Ancestor are related to the nascent soul cultivation method and primordial spirit cultivation method respectively. Then, which Dao Senior is related to the Dao sect's 9 transformations golden core? Do you want to take a look? Xiao Hua said with a smile that was not a smile. I am indeed curious. I want to see how the 9 transformations golden core is cultivated. The Thunderbolt Immortal nodded. But I am afraid of delaying your important matters. After all, the 3 continents are in an abyss of suffering, and we have already reached the final step. There is no reason for us to cause any trouble. You are right, fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua said with a bitter smile. I also think the same. I don't want to cause any more trouble. I just want to find a way to pass through the Wuming Mountain Range. Otherwise, why would I follow some nascent soul cultivator of the Yilan Immortal Alliance to gain experience? Moreover, why would I be in cahoots with the demon race and the demon race? At this point, Xiao Hua said again, although I have never seen the cultivation method of the 9 transformations golden core, I have already deduced the cultivation method of the primordial spirit with fellow Taoist. In your opinion, what is the difference between the cultivation method of the primordial spirit of the Taoist sect and the 5 Qis unifications of the Confucian cultivators? To tell you the truth, fellow Taoist, the Thunderbolt Immortal said seriously, although I am not as proficient as fellow Taoist, I have also increased my knowledge of the Confucian cultivators. In I's opinion, not only are the names of the realms similar, but the cultivation methods are also inextricably linked. If the 5 Qis unifications is not referring to the cultivation method of the primordial spirit, then the primordial spirit cultivation method is referring to the 5 Qis unifications of the primordial spirit. Fellow Taoist, you are still lacking in confidence, Xiao Hua said with a smile. In fact, you already know in your heart that the disappeared sage was obviously a doppelganger of the Taoist ancestor. The reason why the Taoist ancestor used his doppelganger to become a Confucian cultivator was to explore the mystery of the 5 Qis unifications of the primordial spirit. On the surface, that is indeed the case. The Thunderbolt Immortal did not hide his thoughts and replied, but I always feel that it is not so simple. Moreover, the cultivation methods have a long history. Learning from each other and adapting to the heaven and earth is the way of the king. Now that you and I have modified the primordial spirit and nascent soul cultivation methods, thousands of years later, this Yilan continent will definitely be dominated by this cultivation method. But who can deny that the cultivation method that we modified before is not an authentic cultivation method? Fellow Taoist is right. Xiao Hua nodded his head in satisfaction. That's right, the ancient times, the Taoist ancestor and the Taoist ancestor, the nascent soul cultivation methods and primordial spirit cultivation methods have all been buried in the dust of time. It is really too difficult to find the truth. And that golden core 9 revolutions cultivation method, if I am not wrong, it should be somewhat similar to the Buddhist sect's 9 revolutions golden body, right? Fellow Taoists, none of you cultivate the 9 revolutions golden body, so I am afraid that fellow Taoist does not need to look at it. If you have this time, fellow Taoist might as well comprehend the 5 Qis unifications of the primordial spirit. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, reward. Chapter 4966. Now that I've said this, I'm sure many of you will have second thoughts. It's just a selection of cultivators with special divine powers and physiques. Is there a need to make such a big fuss? Du Peng wanted to wait for someone to ask, but when the nascent soul cultivators heard that it was the Tianfeng forbidden area and that they were facing a spirit-severing stage senior, no one dared to say anything. Therefore Du Peng had to continue explaining. Let me break it down for you. The reason is very simple. Firstly, only those with special physiques and special divine powers can pass through the teleportation tunnel in the Wuming mountain range. As for what these special physiques and special divine powers are, I don't know. I only know that the 5 elements escape technique cannot be used in the Wuming mountain range. Here, the Tianfeng forbidden area is raging and the 5 elements escape technique is also restricted. Therefore, if you can pass the test in the Tianfeng forbidden area, you will have a better chance of passing through the teleportation tunnel in the Wuming mountain range. As for the second reason, it's even simpler. I've received news that there is a huge maze at the edge of the Tianfeng forbidden area. After I've personally investigated the maze and checked the ancient records of the Immortal Alliance, I've confirmed that this is the cave residence of Yang Feng, a famous cultivator from the Yilan continent 100,000 years ago. I'm sure you don't know who Yang Feng is, but if I mention the Wind Serene Wheel, I'm sure you know that it's one of the most powerful flying spiritual weapons in the Heavenly Alliance. Before the cultivators could ask more questions, Du Peng continued to explain. But let me tell you, according to the records of the Immortal Alliance, the Wind Serene Wheel is not a real Taoist spiritual weapon, but a genuine soul cultivator spiritual weapon. It's just that the Wind Serene Wheel has been refined by Yang Feng using a secret Taoist technique and can be activated by magic power. Now, the Wind Serene Wheel is in the underground maze. As long as you get the Wind Serene Wheel, you will be qualified to go to the Lost Place. Not only can you pass through the teleportation tunnel in the Wuming mountain range with this spiritual weapon, but the Wind Serene Wheel will also be yours in the future. Boom. After Du Peng finished speaking, the cultivators looked at Du Peng in disbelief. Then they could not help but feel excited and whispered to each other. For a moment the flying boat was in a mess. However, Du Peng didn't care. Instead he watched with a smile. Wasn't this the effect he wanted? Senior. Finally, someone plucked up his courage and asked loudly, Junior has a question, but I don't know if I should ask. Feel free to speak. Du Peng nodded. There's only one spirit tool and I'm afraid there are 400 or 500 of us. Could it be that only one fellow Taoist can go to the Lost Land? There was no need for Du Peng to answer, as a cultivator laughed out loud and said, Fellow Taoist, you're wrong. You've probably never heard of the Netherwind Wheel, right? The cultivator was a little embarrassed and forced a smile. I really don't know. Please enlighten me, fellow Taoist. Actually, it's not strange that you don't know. Du Peng smiled faintly, Although patron Yang Feng is extremely famous, many people also know about the Wind Underworld Wheel. However, the true secret of his spiritual weapon is not something that ordinary people know. Yes, Senior Du is right. The cultivator who spoke later said with a smile, as the saying goes, a numinous treasure has 10,000 shadows. Every shadow of a numinous treasure has the power of a numinous treasure's attack. Although the Netherwind Wheel is not a numinous treasure, it's still a numinous treasure refined by Senior Yang Feng. There's always 1,000 shadows. It's said that Senior Yang Feng used his great power to peel off every shadow from the numinous treasure. He then refined these shadows and gave them to his 999 elite disciples. These 999 disciples are the famous Netherwind Battle Squad of the Heavenly Alliance. Netherwind Battle Squad? The other cultivators were puzzled when they heard this. It seemed that they had never heard of this name. Senior Du, about the Netherwind Battle Squad, it's better for you to explain. The nascent soul cultivator did not dare to steal Du Peng's limelight and hurriedly replied, "This matter seems to involve the secret of the Heavenly Alliance. I only heard about it and dare not speak recklessly." Du Peng smiled and said, "Actually, this is also a matter that has been covered in dust for a long time. Perhaps I don't dare to say it now, but in the future, there will be a day when it will be revealed in broad daylight. Today there's no need for us to talk about our ancestors. We don't dare to say what happened to the Netherwind Battle Squad. We only need to know that the world-famous Netherwind Battle Squad was almost completely wiped out because of a certain matter. However, because the battle team's Netherwind wheels were real Netherwind wheel phantoms, Senior Yang Feng once again used his ability to retrieve the 1,000 phantoms in his heart. However, in order to commemorate the 999 warriors who died unjustly, he sealed these broken shadows in his cave residence. It is also the place that you are searching for today. Your goal is to find these shattered Wind Underworld Wheel phantoms. The fellow Taoist who obtains them will pass the selection. When we obtain the lost place, the Defeat Immortal Alliance will give more rewards to the successful cultivator. Moreover, I can guarantee that the lost place is not what you think it is, nor is it spread by the Heavenly Alliance. If you go there, you should be able to establish your own sect. Your future cultivation path will definitely be 100 times brighter than in the Heavenly Alliance. After explaining the purpose of the selection, Du Peng then mentioned some things to pay attention to. Then he looked around and said loudly, "Fellow cultivators, the selection starts now. The time limit is 30 days. Those who can obtain the fragments of the Netherwind Wheel Shadow and return to the flying boat will be counted." After that, Du Peng raised his hand and said, "Disciples, listen to my command." Yes. The disciples of the Defeat Immortal Alliance at the edge of the flying boat all agreed in unison. Activate the defensive array. With Du Peng's order, all the disciples channeled their spiritual power. A circle of light and shadow emerged from the edge of the flying boat and fell on the defensive array like a big hand. Rip. After a burst of noise, the array was torn apart with a gap of several meters in size. This gap was formed. Woo-woo. The heavenly wind immediately rushed in crazily, making a whimpering sound like ghosts crying and wolves howling. Waves of fluctuations crashed into the Naiwan palace of all the cultivators like a whirlwind. Bursts of light and shadow emerged from the surface of these cultivators' bodies. It was the cultivators who channeled their spiritual power to resist the whistling sound of the wind. This old man is going. When the nascent soul cultivator who was explaining the Wind Underworld will saw that the heavenly wind was rampant, he made a prompt decision and roared. He opened his mouth and spat out a fist-sized pearl, which landed right on top of his head. When the pearl's brilliance protected him, the cultivator urged his body to rush into the hurricane. Since someone took the lead, the other cultivators also began to use their magic treasures to rush out of the flying boat. Taoist Master Yuan Kong waited for a moment and said in a low voice, "Quickly, we don't need to be brave, but we can't fall behind. This is the right time, follow me out." "Okay." Bai Fei opened his mouth, and a small umbrella-like magic tool flew out, protecting his body. Xiao Hua was already prepared, and similarly an ordinary pearl flew out, and a misty halo descended, also protecting his body. Immediately the 5 of them rushed out of the flying boat almost at the same time. Hee. Seeing all the nascent soul cultivators fly out of the flying boat, the corner of Du Peng's mouth rose, revealing a meaningful smile. Xiao Hua flew into the air. The hurricane that seemed like countless large hands began to show off their might near him. The pearl's halo was almost torn out of shape. When he looked at Taoist Master Yuan Kong and the others, they were all similar. Not good. Bai Fei was the first to shout, "This heavenly wind forbidden land really lives up to its name. The heavenly wind here is the power of heaven and earth. It's not something nascent soul cultivators like us can resist. Let's quickly find the entrance to the ancient bewildering formation. Taoist Master Yuan Kong faintly smiled and pointed at the undulating hills on the ground, as well as the bare rocks near the hills. The sky is filled with hurricane vortexes. How could it be the entrance to the bewildering formation? In my opinion, the bewildering formation must be under the hills. There's no harm in us going to take a look. Zhuang Qin also nodded. That's right. Beauty Yu frowned. I don't think the bewildering formation is definitely underground. However, seeing that the other cultivators have all fled underground and that the hills can also shelter us from the wind, there's no harm in us taking a look first. Let's go. Taoist Master Yuan Kong shouted and rushed into the hills on his sword. Xiao Hua also didn't say anything. Seeing that everyone had fled underground, he also flew down. Unfortunately, when everyone fled underground, they found out that the ground wasn't much better than the sky. Ordinary ground could even block the wind in midair. However, this place was different from other places. The wind treated the ground as nothing and easily passed through the hills and rocks, rushing into the depths of the earth. Under the ground, within the soil, not only was there no vegetation, there wasn't even a large piece of rock. Damn it. Taoist Master Yuan Kong had only rushed into the ground for a moment, but the sword light around his body had already become thin. He cursed in a low voice and hurriedly released his divine sense to search the surroundings. However, his divine sense had only been released for a few meters when a tearing pain came from his divine sense. He hurriedly withdrew his divine sense and called out, "Fellow Taoists, don't release your divine sense. This wind is too strong." Taoist Master Yuan Kong's reminder was very timely. Bai Fei and the others were also about to release their divine sense. At this moment, they hurriedly withdrew their divine sense and looked at each other in dismay, not knowing what to do. In such an underground place, in such a strong wind, nascent soul cultivators without divine sense were practically blind. How were they supposed to find the bewildering formation? Xiao Hua had already released a trace of his divine sense. His divine sense was strong enough to contend against the wind at the edge of the heaven wind forbidden land. However, when he saw that the wolf race and demon race were traveling with him, he was too lazy to do anything and only stood to the side with a calm expression. Taoist Master Yuan Kong looked left and right, then pointed at a place and said, "Fellow Taoists, let's go there." Just now this old man saw many cultivators forming groups and going there. There must be something strange. We will listen to Senior's instructions. Bai Fei didn't hesitate at all and followed Taoist Master Yuan Kong to that place. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please come to Qidian to support it, give a monthly vote, a recommendation vote, a collection, a gift, and Chapter 4967. However, in the time it took to finish a meal, they encountered a dozen or so nascent soul cultivators and several gold core cultivators. These people's faces were all pale as if they'd seen ghosts. They didn't say anything at all, and when they passed by Xiao Hua and the others, besides panic in their eyes, there was even more schadenfreude. Taoist Yuan Kong naturally understood the expressions in these cultivators' eyes. He unconsciously stopped and hesitated for a moment. At this time, several nascent soul cultivators flew over from the left. They glanced at Taoist Yuan Kong and nodded slightly to show their respect. Then they once again passed by him and flew to his right. "We'll go over there." As if he felt the goodwill in these cultivators' eyes, Taoist Yuan Kong ordered, "Follow behind them." Taoist Yuan Kong's idea was correct, but he had misjudged the strength of others. In the time it took to finish a meal, the figures in front of them had already disappeared and the 5 of them had once again fallen into darkness. Of course, if it was only darkness, these nascent soul cultivators wouldn't be afraid. What was frightening was that the strength of the hurricanes was even stronger. Each of the whirlpools was filled with powerful earth attribute energy and formed a force sharper than the flying swords. They crazily attacked everyone's defenses. Even someone as strong as Bai Fei had a trace of fear on his face. How could Bai Fei still dare to listen to Taoist Yuan Kong? He looked left and right and opened his mouth. 4 green flying swords flew out like silk. When he saw the trajectory and strength of the 4 flying swords, he hastily pointed in a direction and said, "Let's go." Xiao Hua flew up without hesitation. That beauty Yu also hesitated for a moment before waving at Taoist Yuan Kong and hurriedly following. She didn't want to expose her true identity as a monster here. Taoist Yuan Kong helplessly glanced at Zhuang Qin. Zhuang Qin didn't move and stayed by Taoist Yuan Kong's side. "We'll also go." Taoist Yuan Kong stopped and felt somewhat gratified. He waved at Zhuang Qin and indicated for them to fly together. Bai Fei followed the flying swords for a moment. Then the flying swords landed in a strange place. This place was a place where several hurricanes intersected. According to common sense, it should have been a huge whirlpool. However, the heaven and earth spiritual energy here was somewhat thin. The hurricanes weakened here and the whirlpool didn't form. Instead, it formed a space of several tens of zhang in size where the winds were balanced. Bai Fei landed in the space and the light around his body shone brightly. Clearly, there was no heavenly wind rushing in. Xiaohua and Beauty Yu followed behind, looking relieved. When Zhuang Qin and Taoist Empyrean flew in, Taoist Empyrean's expression was clearly rather unnatural. Bai Fei didn't pay any attention to this. Instead, he opened his mouth again and several flying swords flew out. Unfortunately, after a while, he put them away again and looked at Taoist Master Yuan Kong with a bitter smile. Senior Yuan Kong, this is all I can do. I'm afraid I won't be able to do anything more. From now on, I'll have to rely on you. Alright, please wait a moment, fellow Taoist Bai. Taoist Master Yuan Kong's spirit shook. He nodded and said, let this old man think about it carefully before using the secret technique. Don't worry, we will protect you. Bai Fei smiled and stood in one direction. I'll protect you, senior. Zhuang Qin also said honestly and stood in another direction. When Xiaohua and Beauty Yu stood in another direction to protect him, Taoist Master Yuan Kong narrowed his eyes and looked at the distant darkness. Gritting his teeth, he sat down cross-legged and formed hand seals. As the hand seals formed, rays of light came out from Taoist Master Yuan Kong's body and rushed into the darkness. As the hand seals were activated, the originally balanced hurricane began to intertwine, and wind blades began to form. After a while, Taoist Master Yuan Kong raised his hand and slapped the top of his head. Hong! A Yuanying flew out. Just as the Yuanying flew out, the wind blades were already close to its body. Taoist Master Yuan Kong's Yuanying wasn't solid to begin with, so when the wind blades blew past, the surface of his Yuanying was already starting to crumble. However, Taoist Master Yuan Kong didn't care and opened his mouth again. Pooh! A mouthful of blood essence was spat out. His originally old face became even older and drier. Damn it. Although Xiaohua wasn't familiar with Taoist Master Yuan Kong and didn't like his way of fighting for power, seeing Taoist Master Yuan Kong desperately use his secret technique, Xiaohua couldn't help but feel angry. Xiaohua already understood Bai Fei's intentions. Fellow Taoist Master Yuan Kong. Xiaohua hurriedly reminded, you should rest for a while first. We still have some techniques that we haven't used yet. Unfortunately, Xiaohua still didn't understand Taoist Master Yuan Kong's thoughts. Taoist Master Yuan Kong coldly glanced at Xiaohua and said, Taoist Xiao, don't be anxious. Once this old man's secret technique fails, I'll naturally give you a chance. Ah, forget it. Do as you wish. Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Since Taoist Master Yuan Kong was determined to be fooled, Xiaohua couldn't just drag him down. However, Xiaohua was still a bit surprised. This was because Taoist Master Yuan Kong was only a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator, but after releasing his nascent soul, his body was still under the control of his nascent soul. When the essence blood fell into the air, Taoist Master Yuan Kong's hands actually formed a hand seal and a mysterious light came out from his hand seal and fell into the essence blood. A moment later, the essence blood turned into a blood symbol. Whoa! At this time, the already injured nascent soul suddenly opened its mouth and spat out a light that covered the blood symbol. The blood symbol let out a strange sound. At the same time, the nascent soul also formed a hand seal and pointed at the blood symbol. So, the blood symbol made a sharp sound and flew towards the nascent soul's forehead. Pooh! When the blood symbol landed on the nascent soul's forehead, it immediately turned into an oval-shaped blood symbol and merged into the nascent soul's forehead. Following that, a layer of blood color spread from the nascent soul's forehead to the rest of its body. When Bai Fei saw that Taoist Master Yuan Kong was so desperate to show off, he felt a bit of disdain. However, when he saw that Taoist Master Yuan Kong had such a secret technique, he couldn't help but be startled. When the blood color covered the nascent soul, its eyes flashed red and it opened its mouth again. Pooh! A blood-colored flying sword flew out. The nascent soul's voice was very tired as it shouted, Go! The nascent soul's voice was very tired. The flying sword flew into the air and into the tornado. Then with a schwa, like a flower blooming, hundreds of small swords appeared from the sword and flew off in all directions. Phew! Taoist Master Yuan Kong's nascent soul let out a long breath. It was a lot weaker than before as it slowly fell back into Taoist Master Yuan Kong's body. Taoist Master Yuan Kong slowly stood up. His face was filled with wrinkles and it looked like he had aged a lot. However, this mid-stage nascent soul cultivator's eyes were filled with confidence as he said, "Fellow cultivators, don't worry. In less than half a cigarette there will be news. And I believe that fellow Taoist's secret technique will definitely work." Although Xiaohua didn't like Taoist Master Yuan Kong's pursuit of power, he couldn't bear to see Taoist Master Yuan Kong's lifespan fade away like this. Bai Fei misunderstood Xiaohua and thought that he was trying to kill him, so he smiled and flattered. "Indeed, fellow Taoist's secret technique is the first I've seen in my life. How could it not work? I'll wait for the good news." Zhuang Qin continued to pretend to be simple and honest. "Beauty, you naturally didn't forget to praise him." For a moment, Taoist Master Yuan Kong's tail was raised a bit. Sure enough, in the time it took to smoke a cigarette, a slender sword light returned from under everyone's feet. At this time, the blood-colored sword light had already disappeared and the flying sword was covered in wounds. Taoist Master Yuan Kong painfully put away the flying sword and pointed below. "Fellow Taoists, the maze formation is below. Let us continue. We'll have to trouble fellow Taoist." Bai Fei didn't forget to flatter Taoist Master Yuan Kong and said, "If it weren't for fellow Taoist's secret technique, I'm afraid we wouldn't even be able to touch the entrance to the maze formation. How could we talk about obtaining the Netherwind Wheel?" Taoist Master Yuan Kong's wrinkled face revealed a smile. He was somewhat glowing and said with a smile, "Of course. Since fellow Taoists are willing to follow this old man, how could this old man disappoint you?" With that said, Taoist Master Yuan Kong took the lead and rushed underground. Although the heavenly wind seemed to have lessened the deeper they went, it was possible that the heavenly wind that blew here was even more bitingly cold. What was special was that a huge buoyancy force that was different from the usual underground was born from the darkness to the left, trying to push everyone out. The more Taoist Master Yuan Kong flew, the more apprehensive he became. The excitement on his face from discovering the entrance to the maze formation gradually dissipated. He was afraid that his secret technique wouldn't be able to find the entrance. Moreover, his gaze would occasionally look around. The cold wind blowing nearby caused his heart to turn cold. This was because there weren't any other cultivators flying around. It was far less lively than before. When everyone's flying speed had clearly slowed down, as if they were walking in a swamp, Taoist Master Yuan Kong gradually lost confidence in his secret technique. "Senior Yuan Kong." Beauty Yu's slightly hoarse voice sounded, "Where is the entrance to the maze formation? If we continue flying, I'm afraid my magic power won't be enough. If the entrance to the maze formation is somewhere we can't reach, then how can those golden core disciples enter? This so-called selection is meaningless, right?" Cough cough. Taoist Master Yuan Kong coughed a few times and squeezed out a smile on his face. "Everyone, don't be anxious. The entrance should be nearby. There's no harm in us looking for it again." Xiaohua had already seen strange fluctuations not far below. Moreover, there were many scattered fluctuations. If nothing unexpected happened, it should be the entrance to the maze formation. At this time, when he heard Taoist Master Yuan Kong speak, he immediately took advantage of the situation and said, "Fellow Taoist Master Yuan Kong is right. It should be like this. Since he used his secret technique, it should be nearby. Let's look around. Moreover, I feel that there might not be only one entrance to the maze formation. If we're lucky, golden core cultivators might find other entrances in other places. It's easy for them to enter, but there might be more dangers inside. Since we've spent so much effort to find this entrance, the dangers inside might be less. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support it, vote a monthly vote, vote a recommendation vote, collect a gift, and thank you for all forms of support." Chapter 4968. That's right. Fellow Taoist Xiao is right. Taoist Yuan Kong hurriedly replied and looked at Xiaohua with gratitude. Bai Fei looked around and said, "Let's split up and search. If possible, it's best if we release our divine sense." When Xiaohua heard this, he immediately headed in a direction that wasn't the entrance. Although Bai Fei was displeased that Xiaohua had helped Taoist Yuan Kong out of his predicament, seeing that Xiaohua had obeyed his orders, he didn't say anything and headed in another direction. Coincidentally, Taoist Yuan Kong was heading in the direction of the bewildering formation's entrance. A moment later, Taoist Yuan Kong's excited voice reached Xiaohua's ears. "Fellow Taoist Xiao, quick. This is the entrance to the bewildering formation." Sigh. Xiaohua didn't want Taoist Yuan Kong to find the entrance to the bewildering formation. He bitterly smiled and sighed in his heart. This pitiful little Yuanying, his tail is sticking up again. He'll definitely try to show off after entering the bewildering formation. With the change in the world's spiritual energy, everyone is trying to protect themselves and avoid using magic energy. But this one, for the sake of power and respect, he's willing to sacrifice himself. Alright. Xiao Hua hurriedly transmitted and reminded, Taoist Yuan Kong, you used too much magic energy to activate the secret technique. Entering the bewildering formation. And this old man knows. Many thanks for the reminder. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to finish, Taoist Yuan Kong interrupted him and transmitted his voice. He didn't even need to address him as fellow Taoist Xiao. Xiao Hua shrugged and turned around. He was already at his wits' end against Taoist Yuan Kong, who was courting death. The entrance to the bewildering formation was less than 10 feet away from Taoist Yuan Kong. It was the limit of an early Yuanying cultivator's range. Moreover, the entrance was only the size of a fist. In the darkness, there wasn't any light leaking out. There was only a faint ripple that formed a circle, like smoke coming out from a chimney. Taoist Yuan Kong. Xiao Hua asked knowingly. This is the entrance to the bewildering formation? How come it's only the size of a fist? How do we enter? He. Taoist Yuan Kong looked at Bai Fei and the others approaching and said, Fellow Taoist doesn't know the earth shrinking technique? Haven't you seen the so close yet worlds apart technique? Xiao Hua was a bit angry. He nodded his head. That's right, I don't know. Please guide me, fellow Taoist. Bai Fei had already flown over. He glanced at the fist-sized ripple and asked, Taoist Yuan Kong, this seems to be the entrance to the maze formation, but can you guarantee that the restriction at the entrance is so close, yet worlds apart? Taoist Master Yuan Kong smiled and said, I just used a secret technique and lost a lot of my essence, so I haven't released my spiritual sense yet. However, if it weren't for my Taoism's so close, yet worlds apart technique, how could we enter this fist-sized entrance? Not necessarily. Bai Fei said with a smile, didn't Lord Du Ping say it before? Passing through the teleportation tunnel requires a special ability. Perhaps this entrance is a test that requires us to cast a spell similar to the shrinking spell. No way. Beauty Yu flew over and was a little dumbfounded when she heard Bai Fei's words. She said anxiously, I don't know any shrinking techniques. Senior Yuan Kong, quickly take a look. What kind of restriction is this? Don't spend so much effort only to find the entrance to the formation. Taoist Master Yuan Kong sighed in his heart and glanced at Zhuang Qin, who landed last. Zhuang Qin only stared at the entrance of the formation and didn't care about Taoist Master Yuan Kong's gaze. Alright. Taoist Master Yuan Kong helplessly agreed and released his spiritual sense. The heavenly wind was like a blade and the ripple of the formation was like a millstone. Wherever the spiritual sense landed, the edges were all cut off. Waves of sharp pain traveled into Taoist Master Yuan Kong's mind. Taoist Master Yuan Kong clenched his teeth and held on. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, he retracted his spiritual sense and said with a hoarse voice, Everyone, you're right. This is the entrance to the formation. The entrance is covered by the so close, yet worlds apart restriction. Amazing. Bai Fei didn't hesitate to raise his right hand. He raised his thumb high and shouted, Taoist Master Yuan Kong is indeed an expert. You're even able to see through the mysteries of so close, yet worlds apart. This Bai is truly impressed. Beauty Yu also smiled. This concubine is very fortunate to be able to participate in the selection with Senior Yuan Kong. Although we haven't entered the formation yet, this concubine already knows that the 5 of us will pass the selection. Taoist Master Yuan Kong couldn't close his mouth, but he was also overjoyed inside. However, he feigned indifference on the surface and waved his hand. That's nothing, it's just a small trick. You'll know later, this old man knows many secret techniques. Yes. In the future we'll have to ask Senior to teach us. Beauty Yu said with a smile. She then looked at the entrance of the formation and said, Right now, all we have to do is to enter the formation? How can it be that simple? Taoist Master Yuan Kong smiled. There's a blocking formation hidden at so close, yet worlds apart. Moreover, once we enter the formation, our bodies will shrink and our magic power will be limited. If the blocking formation is powerful, it won't be easy to pass. Bai Fei's face trembled and he requested, Taoist Yuan Kong, if that's the case, why don't this Bai test it out first? After all, you've already used a secret technique and your essence is damaged. Taoist Master Yuan Kong was originally overjoyed when he saw Bai Fei preparing to go first. He was just about to agree when he saw the smile on Bai Fei's face. Taoist Master Yuan Kong was suddenly shocked and thought to himself, could it be that this Bai Fei wants to steal this old man's credit? After pondering for a moment, Taoist Master Yuan Kong circulated his magic power to check his body and nascent soul. He said, Taoist Bai, your spirit is commendable. Moreover, this old man is very pleased that all of you are courageously fighting to be the first. However, this old man is very familiar with so close, yet worlds apart. Not only was Xiaohua surprised, but even Bai Fei, Beauty Yu and Zhuang Chen were surprised. Bai Fei didn't expect Taoist Master Yuan Kong's desire to fight for fame and fortune was so strong. He smiled and said, if that's the case, then Taoist fellow, please go first. Wait and see what kind of restriction attacks this old man will encounter after entering the formation. Then we can make some preparations. Taoist Master Yuan Kong looked around and reminded everyone. Then, his body moved and he fell towards the entrance of the maze formation. Xiaohua was speechless. Among the 5 cultivators, Taoist Master Yuan Kong's strength was likely the weakest. However, for the sake of his face, his pride swelled. Blindly rushing in front of everyone was extremely dangerous. Xiaohua couldn't help but inwardly shake his head. Disasters from the heavens can be avoided, but disasters from one's own doing cannot be forgiven. Taoist Master Yuan Kong's body shrank as he fell into the fist-sized ripple at the entrance of the formation. When he was about the same size as the entrance, a net of fiery red light appeared at the entrance and surrounded Taoist Master Yuan Kong's body. At the same time, a restriction appeared around the entrance, as if to prevent Taoist Master Yuan Kong from escaping and others from rescuing him. Fortunately, where the red light landed, Taoist Master Yuan Kong's body was covered in sword light. Layers of light flickered and the red light gradually dissipated. Taoist Master Yuan Kong's body also disappeared into the entrance. Seeing Taoist Master Yuan Kong safely enter the formation, everyone relaxed. Bai Fei looked around and said, this Bai will take the rear. Which fellow Taoist will enter? This servant will enter first. Beauty Yu looked around and pursed her lips. This place is dark. This servant is scared to go in last. Beauty Yu's body flickered and she also entered the entrance of the formation. The red light naturally couldn't threaten the entrance of the silver wolf. After Zhuang Chen entered, Xiaohua raised his hand and said, fellow Taoist Bai, please go in first. Bai Fei asked curiously, could it be that Taoist Master Xiao doesn't want to enter? I wouldn't dare. Xiaohua laughed. There is still a spirit-severing stage-old monster above us. I only want to enter last. All right. Bai Fei nodded and entered the formation. AI, a bewildering formation, a bewildering formation. Xiaohua watched Bai Fei's figure disappear and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This old man isn't afraid of any formation, but I'm afraid of bewildering formations. Now that I'm going to enter a bewildering formation with some juniors, won't others laugh at me? As he spoke, Xiaohua was just about to move. Kacha. Just when he was 1,000 feet away from Xiaohua, the sound of space cracking could be heard. The space around 100 feet wide was torn apart. Spatial cracks of various sizes fell everywhere like scattered thunderbolts. Coincidentally, one of these spatial cracks was piercing towards Xiaohua at an extremely fast speed. Xiaohua didn't dare to be careless. He immediately clenched his fist, flew up and punched out. Boom. A loud sound rang out as his fist collided with the spatial crack. Amidst the rumbling, the spatial crack shattered, turning into hundreds of inch-sized spatial fragments that fell into the darkness below Xiaohua. Then, a gust of wind blew and the fragments disappeared again. Damn it. Xiaohua glanced at the disappearing spatial fragment and then looked at the entrance of the array. He couldn't help but curse. This Bai Fei seems to be a person of great fortune. If it weren't for this old man here, how could he have withstood this spatial tear? I'm afraid that before he could use his magic power, he would have been torn to pieces by the power of space. It's just that, this spatial crack is strange. Is it also a part of the formation? This door is so close, yet so far, is indeed mysterious, and the decorated archway is also surrounded by clouds, creating a myriad of phenomena. However, near the space fold, there are still faint space fine lines appearing, which is the obscure sign of the circulation of the formation. It is still far inferior to the Buddhist Sumeru mustard seed technique that Xiaohua is familiar with. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a reward, and... Chapter 4969. Seeing that the majestic decorated archway was already in sight, suddenly, on the edge of the pure white clouds on the white jade carvings, strands of fire appeared. In an instant the strands of fire dyed the clouds. Buzz buzz buzz. The flower carvings trembled slightly, and in the midst of the rumbling, the burning clouds surged out from the flower carvings, transforming into the shape of a fire snake that enveloped Xiaohua, and even covered the front of the decorated archway. Yes, these are the fire snakes I saw outside. Xiaohua glanced at these fire snakes, then used his divine sense to scan inside the archway. There was a restriction around the archway that blocked divine sense, but Xiaohua's divine sense was incomparably powerful. This restriction was simply unable to block it. His divine sense broke through the restriction and immediately turned into a thread, like a spring breeze blowing past. He could clearly see the situation inside the archway. Then Xiaohua raised his hand and grabbed. A spatial whirlpool appeared in midair. Swish. Although the fierce fire snake struggled with all its might, it was still sucked into the whirlpool. In just a few breaths, it turned into a thumb-sized fire pearl. Xiaohua took the fire pearl, then put it into his bosom. His figure floated over the archway and landed in the maze. Xiaohua's figure passed through the archway. Light flashed in front of his eyes. It was actually another space. This space was a lotus pond. Taoist Yuan Kong, Zhuang Qin, Beauty Yu, and Bai Fei, who came in earlier, were standing beside the lotus pond. The four of them looked at the lotus flowers with a dignified expression. Xiaohua had yet to walk to the side of the four people when his figure unconsciously stopped. He raised his head to look at the sky, and his eyes revealed a look of understanding. Above Xiaohua's head was a patch of chaos, and an inexplicable light shone down from above, illuminating the space. However, above Xiaohua's head, the heavenly wind continued to appear, and this time the heavenly wind was much more powerful than before. Like willow catkins, spatial folds drifted down with the heavenly wind. Where these spatial folds landed, some extremely powerful spatial power was born, and they were like flying swords that pierced everywhere without a destination. Daoist Xiao. Bai Fei did not turn back but said in a low voice, "Come and see, how can this lotus pond maze be broken?" "It can't be." Xiaohua withdrew his gaze. As he walked, he said in surprise, "Fellow Taoist Bai, how could I possibly break the formation that even you couldn't break?" Taoist Master Yuan Kong turned his head to look at Xiaohua and said with some displeasure, "Taoist Master Xiao, everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. Every one of us cultivators who can cultivate to nascent soul is not a simple character. None of us know where we can contribute our strength. I'm just afraid that I'll lose my confidence first. Without confidence, how can I break the formation?" "Brainstorm," Zhuang Qin said in a muffled voice. Xiaohua walked to the side of the lotus pond and didn't release his divine sense like everyone else. Instead he glanced around. It was a lotus pond with sparse lotus leaves. Some of the lotus leaves under their feet touched the edge of the pond. Moreover, in the areas where the lotus leaves were densely packed, there were also many lotus leaves stacked together. At first glance, it looked like a small path in a paddy field in the countryside. It was impossible to tell which path led to the opposite shore. "Why are you looking at the lotus leaves?" Xiaohua faintly smiled and reminded, "Can't we just fly over?" Taoist Master Yuan Kong glared at Xiaohua and scolded, "Why don't you try flying? Can't you see the overlapping restrictions on the lotus pond? Even divine sense will be strangled to death. Can we just casually fly over?" Xiaohua shrugged and didn't say anything else. After all, with different cultivation and strength, the method of breaking the formation would be different. "Fellow Taoist Bai," Taoist Master Yuan Kong said and carefully looked at the lotus leaves in the lotus pond. He pointed at one of the lotus leaves and said, "Look at that lotus leaf." Then Bai Fei and Taoist Master Yuan Kong discussed how to walk over the lotus leaves in the pond. Xiaohua looked at it for half a cup of tea's time and suddenly his eyes lit up. He clapped his hands and laughed, "Ha, I understand." Taoist Master Yuan Kong somewhat disdainfully glanced at Xiaohua and didn't pay him any attention. He still wanted to say something, but Bai Fei, who was discussing with him, turned his head and asked, "Taoist Master Xiao, what do you understand?" Before it was fellow Taoist Yuan Kong who put in the effort. "This time it's time for I to show my face." Xiaohua smiled and pointed at the lotus leaves in the pond and said, "I recognize this formation." "You actually recognize this formation?" Taoist Master Yuan Kong didn't dare to believe it. He looked at the pond and then at Xiaohua and asked curiously, "Tell me, what kind of formation is this?" "Actually," Xiaohua didn't hide and replied, "this can't be considered a formation. It should be called a simple formation. This formation is called the 9 Palace 8 Trigrams formation." 9 Palace 8 Trigrams formation? What kind of formation is that? Bai Fei also didn't understand and asked, how come this Bai has never heard of it? Xiao Hua pointed at the lotus leaves in the pond and explained the 9 palace 8 trigrams formation. In the end he said, I entered the Tao through martial arts. In my early years I practiced martial arts and also studied formations. Therefore I am very familiar with this 9 palace 8 trigrams formation. Haha, really, this old man thought that this was a formation for immortal cultivators? I didn't expect it to be a formation for mortal cultivators. No wonder this old man didn't recognize it. Taoist Master Yuan Kong laughed and said, how could Bai Fei not know? He just wanted to avoid suspicion and prevent others from knowing that he obtained a secret treasure from fallen Phoenix Mountain. At this time he slightly frowned and carefully looked at the lotus pond. He carefully said, Taoist Master Xiao, are you sure? How could a formation commonly used by martial artists appear in this secret formation? Xiao Hua nodded affirmatively and said, I can be sure of this formation. As for why there is a formation used by mortals here, I don't know. Beauty Yu smiled and said, if that's the case, Taoist Master Xiao, do you dare to break the formation first? Of course. Xiao Hua looks at the silver wolf of the demon race, nods and says, since this 9 palace 8 trigrams formation was seen through by this poor Taoist, naturally this poor Taoist should be the first to break the formation. You wait and see how this poor Taoist moves, just remember it in your heart. As he spoke, Xiao Hua's figure floated and landed on a lotus leaf not far away. Sure enough, there was a strong restriction above the lotus pond. It was extremely difficult for nascent soul cultivators to break through. They could only move on the lotus leaf. Where Xiao Hua landed, the lotus leaf solidified as if it was a stone. Soon after, Xiao Hua walked through the lotus pond safely as if he was taking a stroll in a courtyard and reached the other side. As Xiao Hua's figure landed, light and shadow also appeared on the other side. A transparent crystal-like wall appeared in front of Xiao Hua. At the same time, a hole that was several zhang in size appeared on the wall. Bai Fei and the others were all nascent soul cultivators. As Xiao Hua walked through the lotus leaves, they had already memorized the places where Xiao Hua stopped. Seeing that Xiao Hua had arrived safely one by one, they followed Xiao Hua's path and reached the opposite shore. Not bad. Taoist Master Yuan Kong stepped on the ground and nodded. Taoist Master Xiao, this old man will remember this merit for you. Okay, then I'll have to trouble fellow Taoist Yuan Kong. Xiao Hua replied. He pointed at the hole and said, this must be another maze. Fellow Taoist Yuan Kong, are you going to go first again? Of course. Taoist Master Yuan Kong's gaze swept past the hole and said, this old man will not turn back. Xiao Hua and the others followed Taoist Master Yuan Kong into the hole. In front of them was a somewhat curved tunnel. This tunnel was at least 100 zhang wide. Inside the tunnel, one's divine sense was restricted and couldn't go very far. However, there was no restriction on magic power, so everyone could still fly. However, the heavenly wind began to blow in from the inside of the tunnel. In some places, the heavenly wind even caused spatial cracks to surge like waves, making this tunnel filled with danger. Taoist Master Yuan Kong led everyone to carefully avoid the wind and cautiously moved forward. After flying for half a day, 2 forks appeared in front of them. Taoist Master Yuan Kong stopped in front of the fork and looked left and right. He was a bit hesitant. He looked at Bai Fei and asked, fellow Taoist Bai, do you have any way to determine which direction we should go? Bai Fei frowned and thought for a moment. Then he slapped his own head and released his nascent soul. Afterwards, his nascent soul formed hand seals and several butterfly-like colorful figures entered the 2 tunnels. After a cup of tea's worth of time, the butterfly-like figures returned from the 2 tunnels. Bai Fei put away his nascent soul and bitterly smiled. Fellow Taoist Yuan Kong, these 2 tunnels are connected. Tell me, which one should we go? This one. Taoist Master Yuan Kong hesitated for a moment. Then he pointed to the left and said, what do you think? Fellow Taoist Bai. We'll listen to fellow Taoist. Bai Fei smiled and said, we'll follow fellow Taoist's lead. Naturally, we'll listen to fellow Taoist's decision. Good, then we'll go this one. Taoist Master Yuan Kong was very happy. He decisively flew into the tunnel on the left. However, after flying for another half a day and avoiding many dangers, 3 more forks appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Damn it. How could Taoist Master Yuan Kong not know that he chose the wrong tunnel? He cursed and helplessly looked at Bai Fei. Fellow Taoist Bai, I'll have to trouble fellow Taoist again. No problem. Bai Fei nodded and used his secret technique again. This time it was just as strange. Two butterfly-like figures flew back from the left and right tunnels respectively. Taoist Master Yuan Kong didn't dare to hesitate. After thinking for a moment, he pointed to the left tunnel and said, Let's go this way. Xiao Hua and the others naturally didn't have any objections. Just like that, they flew for another half a day. This time it was even more lively. 4 forks appeared in front of everyone's eyes. This time, Taoist Master Yuan Kong didn't want to trouble Bai Fei anymore. He turned to Beauty Yu and said, Fellow Taoist, do you have any methods? Beauty Yu didn't say anything and took out a palm-sized object from her bosom. This object was in the shape of a small wolf carved from jade. As Beauty Yu spat out a mouthful of blood, the small wolf roared and turned into 4 identical jade wolves that rushed into the tunnel. In just the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the 4 jade wolves returned and turned into one. Beauty Yu raised her hands and pointed to the 2 tunnels without saying anything. It's still this way. Taoist Master Yuan Kong originally wanted to point to the right, but with a thought, he pointed to the left and said, This old man doesn't believe in heresy. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support it, vote a monthly vote, vote a recommendation vote, collect a collection, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 4970. Cough cough. At this moment, Bai Fei coughed and reminded, Fellow Taoist Yuan Kong, I have something I don't know if I should say? Oh, if fellow Taoist Bai has something to say, please say it. Taoist Yuan Kong's heart thumped as he hurriedly asked, Could it be that fellow Taoist thinks we should take the right path? No. Bai Fei shook his head and said, I only feel that when we flew past a few forks in the road, there were always 2 paths that led to survival. Should we understand it this way that these 2 paths must be taken at the same time, in order to reach the final destination? Bai Fei's suggestion at first sounded a bit inconceivable, but after thinking about it carefully it made sense. Thus, Taoist Yuan Kong frowned, somewhat unable to make a decision. Seeing that Taoist Yuan Kong did not speak, Bai Fei simply said, How about this, fellow Taoist Yuan Kong, I will take the right path with Taoist Xiao, and you, fellow Taoist Zhuang and Fairy, you will take the left path. How about this? All right. Hearing Bai Fei's determined tone, Taoist Yuan Kong was somewhat helpless. After hesitating for a moment, he nodded and said, I hope fellow Taoist Bai's judgment is correct. All right, Taoist Xiao and I will wait for you inside. Bai Fei gave Xiao Hua a look and flew into the right path first. Xiao Hua did not understand why Bai Fei was like this, and could only urge his body to fly in as well. Xiao Hua was originally most afraid of this kind of maze, and had already released some of his divine sense to check it out. However, this maze was simply too big, and after looking for a while he felt a bit dizzy. Moreover, he did not want to reveal his true strength in front of Bai Fei and the others, so he simply withdrew his divine sense and let them lead the way. The right path that Bai Fei flew into was even more complicated than before, and after flying for a while, another 4 forks appeared in front of them. Hee. Bai Fei was slightly happy and pointed at the 4 forks. Look, Taoist Xiao, the number of forks is not increasing, which means that we are taking the right path. Damn it, actually, I already felt that there was something wrong with the direction that Taoist Yuan Kong chose. You should have explained it to Taoist Yuan Kong clearly. Xiao Hua was speechless and softly advised. Dizzy. Bai Fei coldly laughed and replied, Do you think he will listen to what I say? He won't listen, he will only think that I am shaking his authority. Didn't he listen this time? Xiao Hua asked. That's because I didn't refute his choice and said that the tunnel on the left was the correct direction. Bai Fei hit the nail on the head. If I only said that the right path was correct, do you think he would agree to take the right path? Even if he wants to die, I don't want to die. All right. Xiao Hua shrugged his shoulders. Looking at these 4 forks that were almost exactly the same, he asked, Now that there are also 4, which one should we take? Does Taoist Master Xiao have any suggestions? Bai Fei narrowed his eyes as he looked at Xiao Hua and asked meaningfully. Of course. Xiao Hua faintly smiled, raised his finger and pointed at the 4 forks one by one. His mouth even pretended to say, Point out the soldiers, point out the generals, ride a horse, go to war, have money to drink, don't have money to scram, egg, who is the bastard, Hami Melon, you, me, him, which princess will marry him? When Xiao Hua finished his last word, his finger pointed at the first fork on the left. Xiao Hua said without hesitation, If it's I, then I will take this path. Seeing Xiao Hua so solemnly point out the soldiers, Bai Fei felt a headache coming on. He looked at Xiao Hua in disbelief and said, That's how you decided? That's right. Xiao Hua nodded without hesitation and said, I am most afraid of this kind of maze. Previously, I had struggled, thought of many methods and also comprehended many secret techniques. But in reality, in the end, I found that this method was the simplest and most convenient. Damn it, I was defeated by you. Bai Fei was speechless. He couldn't help but curse in a low voice. It was unknown whether he was talking about Xiaohua and the others not putting in effort, or Xiaohua's choice that was almost like a joke. Then what about fellow Taoist? Xiaohua looked at Bai Fei with an innocent face and asked. All right. Bai Fei stared deeply at Xiaohua and said, since I want to join hands with Taoist Master Xiao, then I can't not let Taoist Master Xiao see my methods. Otherwise, how can Taoist Master Xiao believe in me? Hearing Bai Fei say Taoist Master Xiao, it was as if Bai Fei had some deep hatred for him. Xiaohua couldn't help but be surprised. Xiaohua didn't know that he had already become Bai Fei's inner demon. After Bai Fei finished speaking, he raised his hand and took out a purple-skinned gourd from his waist. This gourd was engraved with many flowers, birds, fish, insects and other things. Moreover, each flower, bird, fish and insect was made up of even smaller talismans. A faint desolate aura was emitted from this purple-skinned gourd. Bai Fei picked up the gourd, formed a seal and hid it. The gourd emitted a purple brilliance and floated in the air. As the brilliance shone, the flowers, birds, fish and insects on the gourd seemed to come alive and moved in the brilliance. After waiting for a while, seeing that the gourd had expanded several times, Bai Fei opened his mouth again. Quick! A mantra entered the gourd and a purple aura rushed out of the gourd. Hundreds of golden light spots flew out. These light spots expanded with the wind, and in just a few breaths, they had turned into hundreds of fist-sized spirit insects. Gold-devouring insects? Xiaohua was stunned. He looked at these spirit insects with some surprise and whispered, how can these gold-devouring insects be so big? Yes, they are gold-devouring insects. Bai Fei answered indifferently, but there was no lack of pride in his tone. Alright. Taoist Master Bai is really amazing. You can cultivate gold-devouring insects to such a big size. Xiaohua shrugged, not knowing what to say. He also had gold-devouring insects in his space, but they had never been this big. In addition to gold-devouring insects, there were spirit-devouring insects, wood-devouring insects and so on Xinhua continent, but those spirit insects were not this powerful. It's not just the size. Bai Fei laughed. Later you will know the power of these gold-devouring insects. As he spoke, Bai Fei released his divine sense and it fell on the gold-devouring insects. Buzz buzz buzz. As his divine sense fell, the gold-devouring insects immediately became noisy and excitedly swam in the air, crazily devouring Bai Fei's divine sense. After a while, hundreds of spirit-devouring insects divided into 4 groups and rushed into the 4 forks. When all the gold-devouring insects had entered the forks, Bai Fei withdrew his remaining divine sense, his face slightly pale. Seeing this, Xiaohua understood the method Bai Fei used to raise the gold-devouring insects. He shook his head helplessly and smiled bitterly. Taoist Master Bai, you are also going all out. Since you and I have the cultivation method, why do we have to go to the lost place? We can do the same in Yilan continent. Don't mention this again. The more Xiaohua was unwilling to go to the lost place, the more relieved Bai Fei was. Moreover, Xiaohua's words were full of concern, which made the selfish Bai Fei somewhat moved. However, he was still vigilant and waved his hand. I have already made a decision. If you want to go, I will take care of you. If you don't want to go, I will definitely not force you. After the time it took to eat a meal, more than half of the hundreds of gold-devouring insects had returned. Moreover, most of these gold-devouring insects had flown out from the 3 forks on the right. When Bai Fei took out the purple gourd to collect the gold-devouring insects, he looked at Xiaohua meaningfully and said, Taoist Master Xiao, it seems that your luck is not bad. This casual point is the same as the effect of my secret technique. It seems that, from now on, I will have to rely on your luck. Of course. Xiaohua smiled indifferently. It's just a small matter. I am very happy to serve you, Taoist Master Bai. Of course, Bai Fei wouldn't believe Xiaohua's casual words. The next 2 forks in the road, Bai Fei still relied on a large number of gold-devouring beetles to search for a way out, and the number of forks remained unchanged at 4. After passing through the second fork, Bai Fei brought Xiaohua through a cave entrance. As usual, a gold-devouring insect flew out from this cave entrance. Just as it was about to enter the purple gourd, Bai Fei suddenly stopped. He looked at the cave entrance thoughtfully and said to Xiaohua, Taoist Master Xiao, I will have to trouble you to wait here for a moment. I have some things to do. Xiaohua did not understand, but he still nodded and said, Taoist Master Bai, please do as you wish. I will wait here. Bai Fei flew into the cave entrance for about an hour. Xiao Hua stayed outside the cave entrance and quietly waited. Xiao Hua was originally a gentleman, so he disdained to investigate what Bai Fei was doing inside the cave entrance. Therefore he did not know that after Bai Fei flew into the cave entrance, he released more than 10 gold-devouring insects nearby. Bai Fei flew out of the cave entrance. Xiao Hua smiled and asked, Taoist Master Bai, can we go now? Bai Fei looked at Xiao Hua with satisfaction and said, let's go. We have wasted quite a bit of time. We should speed up. Seeing Bai Fei's inexplicable friendliness, Xiao Hua understood that he did not investigate Bai Fei's secrets in exchange for a favorable impression. He did not mind and followed Bai Fei into the cave entrance once again. In fact, after Bai Fei entered the cave entrance, Xiao Hua also released his divine sense and carefully examined the surrounding 1,000 li. Contrary to Xiao Hua's expectations, this maze formation was actually very large. His divine sense covered the entire area and he did not see any wind underworld wheel. Moreover, the forks in front of him were still as numerous as a spider web. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept across his back and his back unconsciously broke out in cold sweat. This maze formation for a direction idiot like him was his weakness. After flying for about the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Bai Fei retrieved many gold-devouring insects from the various caves. Seeing that there was a rather large space in front of him, the 4 forks in the path were faintly visible. Suddenly Xiao Hua's eyebrows twitched and a strange smile appeared on his face. Hee. Bai Fei naturally did not notice. He was still looking forward. At this moment, a cold voice sounded from the front of his head. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, gift, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 4971. The voice of the late nascent soul stage cultivator Jianghu came from afar. I thought the cultivator Xiao Yezi praised was a genius. I've been waiting here for a long time and you've only just arrived. Who? Bai Fei turned pale with fright and cried out involuntarily. When Jianghu's figure appeared in front of him, Bai Fei was in disbelief. He pointed at Jianghu and said, You, how can you be here? Bai Fei, since you can come here, why can't I? Jianghu smiled faintly. How can you know the abilities of late nascent soul stage cultivators like me? Fellow Taoist, quickly follow this Bai. When Bai Fei heard this, he immediately understood Jianghu's thoughts. Without saying another word, he decisively waved his hand at Xiao Hua, and his figure flew backwards, fleeing towards the path they came from. Hee, where can you escape to now that you've entered the maze? Jianghu's figure flashed, turning into a rainbow as he chased after them. Bai Fei understood Jianghu's intention, so how could Xiao Hua not know? Xiao Hua did not want to get involved in this kind of jealous dispute. However, Bai Fei had called out to him before he left. It was obvious that he wanted Xiao Hua to join forces with him. Seeing that Bai Fei was walking towards Xiao Hua with an unfriendly gaze, Xiao Hua cursed in his heart. He also moved and followed Bai Fei's back, pretending to escape. It had to be said that Bai Fei was clean and nimble. Xiao Hua used the magic power of a mid-nascent soul stage cultivator, but he could only see his back. Jianghu, who was behind Xiao Hua, was also like a cat catching a mouse, not particularly close. However, in less than half a cup of tea's time, Bai Fei's flying speed suddenly slowed down. Xiao Hua caught up and saw that Bai Fei's face was somewhat pale. He said worriedly, Fellow Taoist Bai, could it be? Ah, that's right. Bai Fei sighed. Just now, I used too much of my divine sense. Now there's a backlash. Fellow Taoist, I've dragged you down. Xiao Hua looked back at Jianghu, who was neither fast nor slow. He frowned and said, I feel that the two of you haven't reached the point of life and death. Unfortunately, before Xiao Hua could finish speaking, Jianghu's divine sense, mixed with pressure, rushed over. Bai Fei was somewhat panicked. How could he still care about arguing with Xiao Hua? He urged his body to speed up again. Of course, this speed was like drinking poison to quench one's thirst. It didn't take long for Bai Fei to slow down again. Jianghu, who was behind him, sneered, Bai Fei, you can't escape from me. Just stop obediently. Bai Fei sneered and spat out a mouthful of blood essence. His body glowed brightly and his flying speed increased again. Xiao Hua furrowed his brows. He had already seen some clues. Although Jianghu was a late-stage nascent soul cultivator and seemed to be a cat that hunted a mouse, wasn't Bai Fei, who possessed late-stage nascent soul strength, also casting a long line to catch a big fish? I'd like to see which one of them is more ruthless. The corner of Xiaohua's mouth curled up as he pretended to be terrified of being silenced by Jiyu. He forced himself to chase after Bai Fei. In just a short moment, Bai Fei's flying speed slowed down for the third time. Furthermore, Bai Fei's face was extremely pale. It was obvious that his vitality had been greatly damaged. Xiaohua flew in front of him and raised his hand, wanting to pull Bai Fei back. However, Bai Fei was struggling. He rushed towards the hole in front of him and whispered, "Quick, follow this Bai in." After saying that, without waiting for Xiaohua's reply, his body swayed a little, but he still rushed into the cave like a drunkard. Damn it. Although Xiaohua had no sense of direction, he wasn't blind. He glanced around and immediately realized that this was the cave that Bai Fei had entered for half a day. Could it be? Xiaohua suddenly felt a sense of vigilance and said in surprise, "Bai Fei already knew that Jiyu would kill him in the bewildering array?" Thinking of this, Xiaohua recalled the words that Bai Fei said behind Jiyu's back on the special envoy's flying boat. He was secretly surprised. No. It wasn't Bai Fei who knew. It was Bai Fei who lured Jiyu into the maze. He provoked Jiyu on the flying boat so that Jiyu could enter the maze to kill him. He had already set up an ambush here and was prepared to kill Jiyu. Damn it, this Bai Fei's schemes are too deep. However, thinking of this, Xiaohua was puzzled again. That's not right. Why does Bai Fei want to kill Jiyu? Is it just for Yiyun? Could it be that Bai Fei likes Yiyun very much and wants to marry her? Damn it, if that's the case, then it's the biggest joke in the world. Bai Fei only has benefits in his eyes. How can there be love? I'll go back and see what's so special about Yiyun. While Xiaohua was thinking, Bai Fei had already rushed into the cave. Xiaohua's figure didn't stop and followed closely behind. Haha. Jiyu saw Bai Fei and Xiaohua escape into the cave and laughed. Bai Fei, you're wasting your time. The path you're escaping is a dead end. Oh, I understand. You're preparing to ambush this young master from inside? As he spoke, Jiyu waved his hand and summoned a magic treasure that looked like a seal to protect him. Then Jiyu urged his figure and boldly rushed into the cave. As Xiaohua flew into the cave, it was a winding passageway. Xiaohua's eyes narrowed because he already saw hundreds of gold-devouring beetles hiding in the depths of the passageway's walls. These gold-devouring beetles were scattered throughout the several hundred feet long passageway. Divine sense couldn't easily discover them. Moreover, when Xiaohua flew through the passageway, he was alarmed again, because this was a space that was 1,000 feet in size. Bai Fei was standing dispiritedly at the back of the space. When Bai Fei saw Xiaohua fly in, he hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Fellow Taoist, quickly come over." However, within the several hundred feet of Bai Fei in the void, Xiaohua could clearly see that a sword formation had already been set up. Xiaohua was truly convinced by Bai Fei's schemes. If such a shrewd cultivator couldn't cultivate to a high level, then which cultivator could? However, Xiaohua only pretended not to see and asked with concern, "Fellow Taoist, how are you?" "We flew into a dead end. I'm afraid we'll have to fight this Jiyu." "Hee, fellow Taoist, don't worry." Bai Fei hurriedly transmitted, "Didn't I just come in? Just in case, I've already set up a backup plan in the passageway. You and I only need to resist his attacks and consume his magic power. I'll guarantee your safety." "Good," Xiaohua said happily, "then I'll listen to your arrangements." "That's right," Bai Fei complained, "fellow Taoist should listen to me. If you follow me, you won't be at a disadvantage. Today I'll let you see how I'll kill a late nascent soul stage cultivator." That's not possible, right?" Xiaohua said in surprise. "You and I are only around the middle nascent soul stage. Even with fellow Taoist's help, it's impossible to kill a late nascent soul stage cultivator, right?" "Hee, fellow Taoist, guard over there." Bai Fei pointed at a place and said, "You and I will form a triangle. When I tell you to attack, you attack. If I don't tell you to attack, you absolutely can't attack. Today you'll see what I'll do. Of course, I also hope that this arrangement can help fellow Taoist make an early decision." "Okay." Xiaohua agreed and flew to the place opposite Bai Fei. He raised his hand and took out an ordinary flying sword to guard against Bai Fei. Xiaohua had just stood still when Jiyu flew in. He looked around in surprise and said, "This young master thought you'd launch a sneak attack at the turn of the passageway. I didn't expect you to only face the attack here. Could it be that you've already set up a formation in this space?" "That's right." Bai Fei smiled coldly, "This young master has already set up a formation in this space. As long as you fly close to this young master will activate the formation to kill you." "Haha, this young master is flying close." Jiyu laughed and flew closer, saying, This young master wants to see what kind of formation you can set up in this short period of time. Not close enough. Fly a little closer. Bai Fei also smiled and seemed to have a card up his sleeve. Jiyu naturally didn't believe him. He had already released his divine sense to investigate and didn't find anything strange. However, he stopped after flying for a few dozen feet. He hesitated for a moment and said, Bai Fei, don't waste your time. This young master won't fall for your trick. You can set up whatever ambush you want. This young master can still kill you standing here. Bai Fei saw that Jiyu didn't fall for his trick and was helpless. He could only cry and say, Senior Ji, this junior is a little confused. How did this junior offend you? You actually chased into the formation and blocked this young master's path? Do you still need this young master to say it? Jiyu's face was filled with anger. He laughed frivolously and said, Do you know why this young master put down his status as a district envoy and went to the worry-free manor? Do you think I'm going to pick up 2 nascent soul cultivators? This young master is going to pick up little Yi. But you also saw what kind of attitude little Yi has towards this young master. At the mention of the worry-free manor, Jiyu was filled with anger. He actually flew a few dozen feet forward and was much closer to the sword formation that Bai Fei had set up in advance. Bai Fei was delighted, but his expression didn't change. He said indifferently, Senior Ji, this junior is clear about what you're talking about. However, you should also know that ***** is the most normal thing. Yun-er likes this junior and that's her business. It's also my fate with her. What right do you have to interfere? Yun-er? Jiyu's face was filled with malevolence. He flew a few dozen feet back and scolded, What right do you have to call little Yi Yun-er? How many days have you known her? Do you know? This young master saw little Yi when he was still an early nascent soul cultivator. At that time she was only 17 or 18 years old. When I saw her face and saw her smile, this young master knew that she was this young master's dual cultivation partner. Do you know how much this young master has done for little Yi so that she can cultivate in peace? Do you know how much the pills and other things this young master has given her are worth? Do you know how much effort this young master has put in order to protect her? Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 4972. However, seeing that she was about to enter the nascent soul stage, I also made a lot of preparations for her pregnancy. After she was pregnant, I was going to propose to her. But right at this moment, a little brat like you just had to appear. Jiyu's face twisted and his eyes emitted a fierce light, as if he wanted to bite off a few pieces of meat from Bai Fei's body to satisfy his craving. I originally didn't know why she distanced herself from me after returning from the Wuming mountain range. I even tried my best to please her and heal her injuries, but I didn't expect that behind all of this was you. Tell me, can I let you go? I'll kill you today and cut off little Ye's thoughts. Let's see what else she wants to do. Alas, Senior Ji. Bai Fei saw that Jiyu was still some distance away from the sword formation and felt anxious. He was afraid that Jiyu would attack, so he sighed and said, Speaking of which, this is a grudge between you and me. It has nothing to do with Taoist Master Xiao. No matter what the outcome is today, I think, can you let him leave first? Jiyu was stunned. He was greatly puzzled. He looked at Bai Fei and then at Xiao Hua and asked curiously, You actually want him to leave first? If he leaves, how can you be a match for me? Alas, I'm not a match for you. Bai Fei smiled bitterly and said, Previously, I didn't know what you wanted to do, so I pulled this fellow Taoist and fled. Since it has nothing to do with him now, why should I let him stay here? Moreover, he only came to participate in the selection. If you and I were to fight, would you let him help me or watch from the sidelines? Dissy. Jiyu sneered and said, Are you an idiot or am I an idiot? If I wanted to kill you, would I let him leak the news? If this matter was known by the special envoy, wouldn't he scold me? He wants to leave. Don't even think about it. Bai Fei smiled helplessly at Xiao Hua and then said to Jiyu, Senior Ji, actually what I want to say is, even if you kill me today, if Yun-er doesn't see me, she'll think that I'm unlucky and have fallen in this bewildering array. Then you might not be able to win Yun-er's heart. Today she likes me and tomorrow she might like someone else. You don't spend time on her but instead you try to kill me. Isn't that neglecting the essentials? Yun-er. Hearing Bai Fei mention Yun-er again and again, Jiyu found it unbearable. He flew closer in a great rage and raised his hand to point at the seal above his head as he shouted, Is this something you can call? Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. The seal was similar to Xiao Hua's seal of overturning the sea. After it rushed into the air, A hurricane immediately appeared around it. Streams of heaven and earth spiritual chi rushed into it. Layers of shadows flashed and fell towards Bai Fei. The space several hundred feet around Bai Fei began to twist slightly, as a vast force pressed down from the sky. Bai Fei looked at Ji Yu's figure that was only a few feet away from the sword array. He gritted his teeth and raised his hand. Boom! A green sword light soared into the sky and pierced towards the seal. The sword light was also amazing. It overflowed with brilliance and shattered the seal's shadow. The heavy pressure of the seal was also pierced through by the flying sword. Clang! The flying sword collided with the seal, and an ear-piercing sound of metal rang out. As expected, the flying sword was knocked back and the seal also tumbled in the air. Roar! Seeing the seal tumbling, Ji Yu was enraged. He raised his hand and slapped the top of his head. Boom! A crimson light shot up into the sky. Ji Yu released the pressure of a late nascent soul stage cultivator. The crimson light condensed into 100 zhang large hand in the air and grabbed it Bai Fei. Under this grab, Xiaohua was also at the edge of the big hand's imprisonment. He saw fine lines appear above Bai Fei's head, and Bai Fei's figure couldn't even move. Xiaohua was not anxious for Bai Fei because not to mention the sword array's flying swords and the gold-devouring beetles that never appeared behind Ji Yu, just Bai Fei's hidden late nascent soul stage strength was enough for him to not be at a disadvantage against a nascent soul stage cultivator. Fight! Bai Fei pretended to roar and was also afraid of hitting his head. Boom! The green light was like a candle in the wind. It swayed and rushed out, turning into a big hand. This big hand was sparkling and translucent like jade. It reached out to grab Ji Yu's nascent soul hand. Boom! The two big hands clasped together, and the entire space let out a loud roar. A wave of air surged out in all directions, and within this wave of air, the two big hands turned into fragments of light. Damn it! Ji Yu didn't expect his nascent soul hand to be crushed. He roared and stretched out his left arm again. Whoa! On Ji Yu's left arm, strange blood patterns appeared. Ji Yu's left arm turned into a tiger's claw and slashed through the air, landing on Bai Fei's head. This claw seemed to be able to tear the void. It was even more powerful than the nascent soul hand from before. Boom boom boom. Seeing Ji Yu like this, Bai Fei wasn't nervous at all. His body also glowed with golden light, and under his Taoist robe, layers of golden scales gradually grew. The nearby heaven and earth spiritual chi turned into a hurricane and rushed into the gaps of the scales. Bai Fei's eyes were faintly golden. Those faintly golden eyes were staring at Ji Yu's feet that had already stepped on the edge of the sword array. I'm afraid this is Bai Fei's true strength? Xiaohua narrowed his eyes, waiting for Bai Fei's voice transmission. He looked at the changes on Bai Fei's body and thought to himself, he has a body that can fight against the demon clan. His true strength is also at the late nascent soul stage. Is Ji Yu? I'm afraid he's going to suffer. However, just as Xiaohua was watching the show, a sigh actually came out of Ji Yu's mouth. The figure that had already stepped into the sword array retreated extremely quickly. At the same time, the light of the tiger claw that was descending was completely restrained. Under the light, Ji Yu's lonely face was revealed. Even if I kill you, so what? Will little Yi be happy? As Ji Yu retreated, he said worriedly, even if I marry her, if she finds out about what happened today, how can I face her? Although I like her, I want her to live a happy life. I want her to watch the sun rise every day and watch the moon illuminate the night sky. Bai Fei. Ji Yu's figure stopped in the distance. His eyes were like lightning as he looked at Bai Fei and said, your strength is not bad. You can actually fight with this young master. And from the looks of it, you must have some hidden cards. With your strength and scheming, this young master can be at ease. However, Bai Fei, you must treat little Yi well. If this young master finds out that little Yi has been wronged, don't blame this young master for killing his way to your door. With that, Ji Yu waved his hand again and a storage ring flew over. He said, there are 2 jade bottles inside. One is the emerald firefly pill that this young master asked for from the Alliance Master. The other is the golden pill that this young master asked for from the direct disciple of Taoist Master Jin Sheng. I just got it today and it is the most suitable for little Ye's injury. But since little Yi got on the flying boat, she has not seen this young master. This young master is not at ease to let others give these pills to her, so I can only let you go. You don't have to mention this young master's name for these pills. Consider it cheap for you. Also, the lost place is not a good place. With your strength, you won't have a good ending. This storage ring has the complete nascent soul cultivation method, which was personally modified by Senior Zhang Xiaohua. You wait and take it, quickly withdraw from the selection and find a place to meditate. With that, Jiyu did not wait for Bai Fei to say another word. His figure turned into a rainbow and rushed into the passage and disappeared. Huh? Bai Fei was dumbfounded. Xiaohua was also dumbfounded. The two of them looked at each other, almost not daring to believe their eyes. When Xiaohua came to his senses, he unconsciously groaned, "Damn it, isn't this a living fire qilin?" Speaking of the fire qilin, Xiaohua couldn't help but feel a dull pain in his heart. He instantly thought of the situation when he took Shui to gain experience in the past. At that time, Xiaohua only had the strength of foundation establishment. Facing the coercion of 3 nascent soul cultivators, he didn't have any strength to resist. It was also because of the fire qilin's pure infatuation that Xiaohua and Shui avoided a disaster. Of course, it was also because of the fire qilin's infatuation that Xiaohua didn't have any special resentment towards the 3 elders of the ardent fire mountain. And now Xiaohua saw Jiyu again. This nascent soul cultivator didn't choose to kill or force his love rival who was weaker than him. Instead, he chose to retreat and endure. Although Bai Fei was extremely puzzled, Xiaohua could see from this retreat that Jiyu had an extremely strong love for Yi Yun. Could it be that this Jiyu is sick? Bai Fei looked at the storage ring in front of him and didn't anxiously reach out to take it. Instead, he looked at Xiaohua inexplicably and whispered, "Or he saw through something? This is a trick to lure the enemy?" Jiyu's departure was too sudden. Not only did Bai Fei not have time to activate the sword formation, he didn't even have time to activate the gold-devouring beetles in the passage. A faint uneasiness appeared in his heart, a kind of uneasiness that escaped from his calculations. Xiaohua shrugged and said casually, "This isn't something that I can know." However, it seems that he really did leave. Why is he like this? Who knows? Bai Fei, who had been scheming against others all his life and fighting for his own benefits, seemed to have never faced this kind of abandonment and letting go. When he heard Xiaohua's answer, he still didn't understand why Jiyu didn't fight with him. Could it be that the things in this world weren't all obtained by relying on one's own strength? However, when Xiaohua's figure moved and was about to leave the sword formation, Bai Fei's eyes showed a trace of sternness. He suddenly smiled and said, "Daoist Xiao, oh?" Xiaohua unintentionally raised his head and asked, "What's wrong? I advise you to calm down a little." Bai Fei smiled faintly and replied, his face showing a cold intent, "P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank all forms of support." Chapter 4973. Calm down? Xiaohua was a little puzzled, but suddenly, his face changed greatly. Sure enough, as soon as Bai Fei's voice landed, whoosh whoosh whoosh, a series of sounds like the spring rain brushing against one's face rang out. Right next to Xiaohua, thousands of sword lights appeared, like strands of hair, enveloping the space around Xiaohua. Waves of bone-chilling cold seeped out from the sword array, directly piercing into Xiaohua's heart. What is the meaning of this, fellow Taoist Bai? Xiaohua simply pretended to the end. Xiaohua asked in a panic. He just saw Jiyu's infatuation, and now he saw Bai Fei's scheme again. He only felt that Bai Fei was incomparably ugly. He didn't mind stretching out his little finger after Bai Fei made a move and gently crushed this little nascent soul stage cultivator to death. Let him truly become a waste. Rest assured, fellow Taoist. Bai Fei smiled slightly, and the coldness on his face suddenly disappeared. He said, "No matter what, you and I have experienced life and death together. I can't be ruthless to fellow Taoist. I only ask fellow Taoist to carefully consider the cooperation between you and me. In fact, fellow Taoist must have seen it just now. If Jiyu didn't stop in time, I absolutely have the confidence to kill this beast in this sword array. With my strength, you still don't feel at ease?" Xiaohua nodded and said, "Fellow Taoist, tell me I understand. It's not that I don't feel at ease, and didn't I also say that I will go to the land of the Lost Lands? I'll go to the Lost Land. As for loyalty and assistance, we'll talk about it when we get there." It's precisely because of fellow Taoist's answer that I don't feel at ease. Bai Fei said with a fake smile, "If fellow Taoist doesn't go, I will feel more at ease. With one more nascent soul stage cultivator going to the land of the Lost Lands, wouldn't I have one more opponent?" "Alas, Bai Fei." Xiaohua sighed and said, "You really have too many schemes. I originally wanted to help you, but you even schemed against I. Are you going to force I to make a blood oath after killing Jiyu?" "Maybe." Bai Fei didn't deny it, nor did he confirm it. He just shrugged and casually said 3 words. Then he smiled and said, "However, fellow Taoist is in the formation right now, so I'll ask you something." Xiaohua could squash Bai Fei to death as easily as squashing a fly. Unfortunately, Xiaohua really didn't want to attack a human cultivator right now, especially Bai Fei, who had painstakingly cultivated from a little qi refining cultivator to a nascent soul cultivator. He clearly knew how hard it was for the cultivators of Dawn Rain Continent to cultivate, and he was reluctant to kill this human cultivator who had a very bright future. Therefore, Xiaohua shrugged his shoulders and said with a smile, "I'm not your enemy. As for whether you'll let me go or not, that's up to you. Make your own choice." Oh. Facing Xiaohua's calmness, Bai Fei's heart, which had just felt satisfied and stable because of his schemes, floated again. He looked Xiaohua up and down and suddenly remembered Xiao Yu's reminder. Bai Fei naturally wouldn't elevate Xiaohua to the highest level of the human race. He was only worried that Xiaohua had some special secret technique. With this thought, Bai Fei's expression immediately changed. He opened his mouth. Whoa! The wind rose again, and the thousands of sword lights rapidly condensed, finally turning into several green flying swords that fell into Bai Fei's mouth. "Hee fellow Taoist, don't be afraid," Bai Fei said with a smile. "I'm just testing fellow Taoist. That Jiu's appearance is really too strange and coincidental. I'm afraid fellow Taoist sent him a message." "Oh?" Xiaohua was naturally an expert at acting. He didn't mind feigning civility with Bai Fei. In an instant, a wronged expression appeared on his face and he said, "Fellow Taoist Bai, along the way, all the forks in the road were chosen by fellow Taoist. I didn't even release my divine sense. How could I send a message? What's more, just now Jiu's intentions were already revealed. I can't possibly send him a message because of this, right? It's all because I was too suspicious. Fellow Taoist, please forgive me." As Bai Fei spoke, he raised his hand and took Jiu's storage ring. Without even looking at it, he put it away. Clearly, he didn't feel at ease with Jiu. It's fine. What could Xiaohua say? He could only wave his hand and say, "We're not familiar with each other. It's only right for us to keep our distance. And since that's the case, we'd better hurry inside." Bai Fei said with a smile, "Since Jiu doesn't want me to go to the Lost Land, then I must go and take a look." "Fellow Taoist Bai, please?" Xiaohua nodded and raised his hand. "Fellow Taoist, please go ahead." Bai Fei said, "I still have to tidy up the sword formation." Xiaohua knew that Bai Fei wanted to take away the gold-devouring beetles in the stone wall, so he didn't refuse any more. He turned around and flew out of the space. Looking at Xiaohua's back, Bai Fei couldn't help but curse in his heart. Damn it, this Taoist Master Xiao, what kind of demon race secret technique does he know? Why does it seem like he's not afraid of me at all? Xiao Yu, did you see anything just now? Master. Xiao Yu's voice sounded, "I didn't feel anything. I'm afraid this so-called Taoist Master Xiao is just bluffing Master." Impossible. Bai Fei firmly believed in his feeling. If he didn't have any confidence, how could he be so calm? Anyone who faces an unsolvable crisis will inevitably be nervous. "I'm from the demon race," Xiao Yu said helplessly. "Didn't Master always say that humans are the spirit of all living things? I don't understand what you humans are thinking. Truly useless things." Bai Fei felt vexed for no reason. He cursed in a low voice and used a secret technique to take the gold-devouring beetles into the stone wall into the purple gourd. Only then did he slowly fly out of the cave. Xiaohua was the same as last time. He was still guarding the entrance of the cave harmlessly. Seeing Bai Fei come out, he smiled and asked, "Fellow Taoist Bai, can we go now?" Bai Fei was the same as last time. He looked at Xiaohua with satisfaction and said, "Let's go. We've wasted a lot of time. We should speed up." It was as if nothing had happened. Very strange. This time, Jiu naturally didn't appear again. Xiaohua and Bai Fei arrived at the space of the third four-way path. However, what Bai Fei didn't expect was that 2 of the gold-devouring beetles flew back, indicating that these 2 paths were dead ends. The gold-devouring beetles in the other 2 paths only flew back a little, indicating that these 2 paths were alive. Bai Fei was a little hesitant. Looking at the 2 paths, he didn't know which to choose. Xiaohua didn't hesitate and said, "Since there are 2 paths, it means that there might be wind underworld wheels in both paths. If the 2 of us want to pass the selection, we need 2 wind underworld wheels. Why don't we split up and search here? What do you think?" "All right." Bai Fei nodded. He raised his hand and pointed at one of the paths and said, "I'll go this one." Fellow Taoist, you can go the other one. We'll do as you say. Xiao Hua agreed with Bai Fei's choice. Just as he was about to move, Bai Fei hurriedly said, Fellow Taoist, don't be anxious. Let's talk about it after I take back the gold-devouring beetles. Hee, I forgot about that. Xiao Hua woke up and replied, Fellow Taoist, quickly take them back. After a meal, the gold-devouring beetles flew out of the path. Bai Fei raised his hand and said, Fellow Taoist, please? Haha, I'll have to trouble you, Fellow Taoist Bai. Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, Fellow Taoist Bai has been putting in effort all this time. I have benefited a lot from Fellow Taoist. From now on, I will have to work hard myself. I hope Fellow Taoist can smoothly find the wind underworld wheel. Bai Fei said with concern. He also flew into one of the paths. When Xiao Hua saw that Bai Fei had left, he also rushed into the fork. However, he only flew for a moment before he coldly snorted and said, This Bai Fei really makes this Xiao speechless. Why must he release a gold-devouring bug to follow the Xiao? Do you think you can discover my secret just by relying on this thing? Then Xiao Hua pretended not to see the gold-devouring beetle sticking to the stone wall behind him and casually flew around the maze. Xiao Hua had no sense of direction. After a few times, how could he still know where he was? As he flew, he didn't know if the gold-devouring beetle was moved or if it got lost. He couldn't find a trace of it left or right. Forget it, I'll use my divine ability and see where the wind underworld wheel is? Xiao Hua casually flew for the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Looking at the messy path, he said self-deprecatingly, With my flying skills, I'm afraid I won't be able to find the wind underworld wheel in my lifetime. As he spoke, Xiao Hua formed a seal with his hands and urged his magic power. Suddenly, woo-woo. Above his head, a ghastly wailing sound could be heard. A heavenly wind that was several times more powerful than before descended. Then, the space within several thousand feet became extremely distorted. Hundreds of spatial cracks fell down, even denser than the violent storm. They swept through the stone walls, swept through the space and rushed into the surroundings of the bewildering formation. Xiao Hua frowned. He originally wanted to dodge, but at this moment, within the distorted space, several terrifying forces mixed with an aura that Xiao Hua was both familiar and unfamiliar with gushed out. This is dragon aura? How can there be such a violent realm storm? And an aura that almost surpasses the 9th grade of essence power? Xiao Hua's face was filled with shock. He almost didn't dare to believe his own senses. He growled, Could it be that the Alliance Masters of the Heaven Alliance also came to snatch the wind underworld wheel? This daddy's senses aren't wrong, right? When did the Dawn Rain continent become so popular? As he spoke, Xiao Hua didn't dare to hesitate. His consciousness entered the space and pulled out a few spirit-severing stage disciples. He instructed, You all help this old man find the wind underworld wheel in the maze. Although Xiao Hua's appearance had changed, these disciples were extremely familiar with Xiao Hua's orders. The only ones who could pull them here from the Xinhua continent were Xiao Hua and a few other sect masters. Therefore they didn't hesitate at all and bowed in agreement. Yes, this disciple obeys. Xiao Hua raised his hand and pointed. Several light spots fell between their eyebrows. Those people's bodies shook violently and they hurriedly said, This disciple thanks old master for the generous gift. And go quickly. Xiao Hua passed down the information about the wind underworld wheel and the secret technique to reward these disciples to his disciples. After instructing them, he waved his hands again. A spatial crack appeared. Xiao Hua flashed into it and hurriedly left. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, gift and thank all forms of support. Chapter 4974. The spirit-severing stage disciples lowered their heads and pondered for a moment. Then they nodded at each other and went to different places. This was a place that seemed to have no heaven and earth. Within thousands of miles or even tens of thousands of miles, there were only hurricanes and space fragments. These hurricanes seemed to have gone crazy. They either crashed down from the 9th heaven, suddenly rushed up from the 9th hell, or rampaged in the vicinity. There was no pattern at all. What was even more strange was that these hurricanes were like a chaotic battle team. At first, they cooperated and swept across thousands of miles. However, in a blink of an eye, these hurricanes became enemies. They desperately collided with each other, and chaotic forces poured out in all directions. When the hurricanes swept across the space, they emitted an inexplicable light. The light was either a straight line or broken into pieces. Most of the time it was broken into arcs. Within the arcs were the space fragments. At this moment, the space fragments were like ice cubes in the torrential turbulence in winter. They were either spinning or drifting, and they were colliding with each other in a disorderly manner. The collision of the space fragments was different from the hurricanes. The annihilation of space created a vast space force. This space force was more destructive than the hurricanes. Occasionally, it would tear everything within a few miles or dozens of miles apart. Occasionally there would be explosive sounds. Waves and waves that could tear apart mountains and rivers rushed out of the space and fell into the distant sky. Then, an endless amount of hurricanes and spatial fragments were born in this wave of air. Is this the heavenly wind forbidden land? At the edge of the space, a blast of air that could tear a mountain apart rushed past. Two human figures strangely appeared high up in the sky. Although the blast of air left behind a huge force, when this huge force swept past the two human figures, it was only able to twist and distort the human figures. A weak voice faintly came from the swaying figure. That's right. This is the Tianfeng Forbidden Area, one of the 6 forbidden areas of the Heavenly Alliance. Then another slightly older voice sounded, I'm afraid you've heard of this place for a long time, but you've never been here, right? Senior, I grew up in the Tao Alliance. Even when I went out to train, I rarely came to the Heaven Alliance to avoid arousing suspicion. That's why, it's impossible for me to have been to the Heavenly Wind Forbidden Zone. The other voice was filled with respect and grew louder and louder. Gradually, the two swaying figures solidified, and a figure that was 1,000 feet tall was revealed. The source of the respectful voice was a young cultivator in black clothes. This cultivator's face was like the full moon, and his eyebrows were like distant mountains. A faint halo flashed in his slightly purple eyes. Next to the cultivator was an old man. This old man appeared to be even more muscular than the young man. The surface of his faint golden body was engraved with thousands of tiny runes. As the light flickered, the runes gave rise to strange phenomena. Faint projections of dragons, tigers, elephants, and WRMS appeared. Even the imperceptible roars of beasts could be heard from these projections. The old man's eyebrows were as sharp as knives, and his eyes were as sharp as rocks. Wherever his gaze swept past, the winds would be pierced through. You've been to the 4 forbidden areas of the Tao Alliance, right? The old man's voice was indifferent, but in the young man's ears, it was like metal clashing with stone. Every single word was like the sound of a battle. The young man didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly bowed and replied, Yes, senior. I've been to the 4 forbidden areas of the Tao Alliance, the Xiangong Forbidden Area, the Flood of Tao Forbidden Area, the Fulin Forbidden Area, and the Imoqing Forbidden Area. I went to the Xiangong Forbidden Area when I broke through a bottleneck at the mid-body integration stage, the Flood of Tao Forbidden Area when I broke through to the Grand Ascension stage, and the Fulin Forbidden Area when I was stuck at a bottleneck at the mid-body integration stage. As for the Imoqing Forbidden Area, the young man's voice was as gentle as water, and it was very pleasant to the ears. As the saying went, kindness is like water. His voice didn't dissipate in the winds and it could still be heard clearly. However, before the young man could finish, the old man laughed and said, let me guess. You must have gone to the Imoqing Forbidden Area to train because you wanted to break through to the late body integration stage, right? The young man smiled and nodded. Senior is right. I'm strong enough, but I can't see the door of heavenly Tao if I don't pass the tribulation. Therefore, Reverend Ji Yen suggested that I go to the Imoqing Forbidden Area to train. He said that there are profound truths of heaven and earth there, and it's very useful for comprehending the door of heavenly Tao. Sigh. The old man sighed. Shiyu, what do you think you've gained from the Imoqing Forbidden Area? The young man named Shiyu was naturally Reverend Shiyu, the defector disciple of the Chongxi sect. He was also one of Reverend Ji Yan's favorite disciples. No one would have thought that he would actually appear here. Needless to say, the old man beside Reverend Shiyu was definitely a famous figure in the Heaven Alliance. Reverend Shiyu's face was filled with shame. He said in a low voice, Junior's aptitude is limited. In the end, I didn't gain anything from the Imoqing Forbidden Area. After I came out of the Imoqing Forbidden Area, I received Senior's message. Reverend Ji Yen is considered one of the top figures in the Tao Alliance. How could he be so muddle-headed on this matter? The old man's face was filled with disdain. He curled his lips and said, This old man hasn't been to the Tao Alliance's 4 great forbidden areas, but I've been to the Imoqing Forbidden Area and the Flood Tao Forbidden Area. Although the topography and scenery of the two places are different, in reality, the laws of heaven and earth in the two places are very similar to the 6 great forbidden areas of our Heaven Alliance. If you go to one place, you don't have to go to the other. Moreover, the laws of heaven and earth in the four great forbidden areas are the condensation of the laws of heaven and earth in my Yilan continent. You're only at the late body integration stage, but you've gone to these forbidden areas to comprehend them one after another. The time interval is so short. Can you comprehend them? There's a saying in the secular world, you can't become fat if you eat in one go. Reverend Ji Yen really dotes on the disciples of the Chongxi sect. Such a fortuitous opportunity. Only he, as the Vice Alliance leader of the Tao Alliance, could give it to you. Even the sect master of the Chongxi sect wouldn't dare to be so generous. Yes, this junior understands. Reverend Shiyu replied respectfully, but his tone was somewhat gloomy. This is all Reverend Ji Yan's love. Although this junior understands clearly, I don't dare to disobey. Hee, do you still regret it now? The old man wasn't surprised. He looked at Reverend Shiyu and asked. At this moment, the power of the realm of heaven and earth surged over like a tsunami. The space within 100 li around the old man and Reverend Shiyu was annihilated by this frenzied tide. However, when this frenzied tide engulfed the old man's body shone with golden light. That golden light was like a tough pillar that propped up the space several hundred zhang around him. Moreover, within the golden light, the sound of dragons and elephants could be heard. Although the power of the realm of heaven was powerful, it actually couldn't tear apart the old man's protective golden light. Reverend Shiyu looked around in astonishment. While admiring the old man's shocking methods, he lowered his eyebrows and said, Senior, please know that this junior said that he didn't regret it, but that was a lie. After all, this junior grew up in the Chongxi sect and Reverend Ji Yen treated this junior like a nephew. If kinship is useful, what's the point of having a sect? If a sect is useful, what's the point of having the heavenly Tao? The old man mercilessly interrupted Reverend Shiyu and said, The Tao Alliance, which cultivates nascent souls, has reached the end of their road. Due to the change in the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, their nascent souls condensed from the spiritual chi of heaven and earth are the first victims. Although the cultivators of the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance are troubled by the loss of their lifespans, it's obvious that the lifespans of all the cultivators of the Heaven Alliance are decreasing much more slowly than the cultivators of the Tao Alliance. You've only just reached the late stage of the Mahayana realm and haven't reached the tribulation stage yet. It's still not too late to withdraw from the Tao Alliance. If you wait until you peek into the door of the heavenly Tao and want to cultivate the 8-9 golden body, it'll be too late. Yes, this junior understands. Reverend Shiyu said with a smile, the path to immortality has always been lonely. Cultivators never have companions. Since you want immortality, you must know how to give up. This is what Senior Ming Guang told this junior when we first met, and this junior engraved it in my heart. That's right. Ming Guang's cultivation isn't high, but he has contributed greatly to the Heaven Alliance. The old man nodded. It's a pity that the Tao Alliance discovered his flaw. In order to keep the seeds of the Heaven Alliance, he gave up his life and the chance to enter the cycle of reincarnation. While they were talking, a 5-colored brilliance appeared high up in the sky. It was like a star in the dark night. As soon as this star appeared, it immediately turned into a stream of light and flew through the hurricane and spatial fragments. In less than the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, a 5-colored light that was several hundred feet in size landed in a corner of the space. This 5-colored light was like a stream of light, and an old man with an ancient appearance appeared. This old man was wearing a 5-colored robe. His eye sockets were deep and his eyes were withered. The old man's gaze passed through the shattered laws and landed on the young man and the purple-eyed old man. He said, Yang Xia, is this the disciple that you, Mei Xianling, led into the Chongxi sect? That's right. The purple-eyed old man named Yang Xia nodded and said to Reverend Shiyu, Shiyu, this is the Peacock Manor's old man Peacock, Kong Chang. I'm sure you know Senior Kong Chang. Junior Shiyu greets Senior Kong. Reverend Shiyu hurriedly bowed and said, although Junior has always been in the Tao Alliance, Senior's name is really like thunder. No matter where you are in the Yilin continent, your name is like thunder. It's just that Junior has long heard of Senior's name, but has never seen Senior in person. Today Junior's wish has finally been fulfilled. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and thank you for all forms of support. A word for nameless fellow Taoist. In your own life, others only have suggestions. The decision is in your hands. Illness is not scary. What is scary is the state of mind. There is only so much happiness in the world. For yourself, for the people who care about you, you have to enjoy more happiness. Only when you are happy will they be happy. You have to believe that tomorrow is always beautiful. Chapter 4975. Forget it. Kong Chang sneered. I'm not as famous as Yang Xia in the Heavenly Alliance. You're so used to being in the Taoist Alliance that you've even learned Jiyan's hypocrisy. Taoist Master Shiyu was embarrassed and did not know how to respond. Yang Xia laughed. Ha, Shiyu, don't listen to this old peacock's nonsense. He's jealous of me. Most of the disciples sent by the Peacock Mountain Manor to the Taoist Alliance have been discovered. Now all of his previous plans have failed. He's the one who got nothing. Oh, not to mention that you've emptied the Chongxi sect. All the secret techniques and cultivation methods will belong to me. Tiske. Taoist Master Shiyu snorted and said disdainfully, if it was before, I might have been jealous. But now that Zhang Xiaohua's immortal cultivation method has been announced, do you think I'll still care about the trashy cultivation method of the Chongxi sect? Kongchong. Yang Xia seemed to be a little angry and growled. Isn't it just Zhang Xiaohua's cultivation method? It was created by Zhang Xiaohua. What does it have to do with you? Didn't Zhang Xiaohua use the Peacock Mountain Manor to give the cultivation method to the Heavenly Alliance? Also, don't forget that other than the Peacock Mountain Manor, the Guangqing Immortal Alliance's Shenming sect also gave a cultivation method Jade Slip. Well, if you're so capable, why don't you fix the last 3 realms of the primordial spirit cultivation method? What's wrong? Taoist Master Shiyu laughed when he saw Yang Xia angry. Yang Xia, are you angry? Oh, that's not right. You're not angry, you're jealous. I've gotten the primordial spirit cultivation method modified by Zhang Xiaohua. It's like adding wings to a tiger. But what about Yang Xia? I've never heard of Zhang Xiaohua modifying the cultivation method of the 9 transformation golden pill, let alone the 8-9 arcane art. Roar? Just as Taoist Master Shiyu was awkwardly listening to the 2 seniors bicker and Yang Xia was about to retort, a dragon's roar resounded from the edge of space in the distance. Soon after, a model dragon that was thousands of feet long broke through the air. Its vast aura and unparalleled magic power tore apart the shattered space. Whether it was Taoist Master Shiyu, Yang Xia, or Kong Chang, seeing Minister Long's boldness, they didn't dare to slight him. They hurriedly stopped smiling and bowed. Greetings, Lord Alliance Master. The dragon image was originally very far away, but when the 3 cultivators bowed, the dragon image had already crossed the void and landed on the side of the space. When the light and shadow solidified, the dragon image shrank, and a burly middle-aged man stood proudly in the hurricane. The middle-aged man's appearance was a little blurry, and the light and shadow couldn't be seen clearly. However, the 2 9-colored dragon horns on the middle-aged man's forehead could be seen clearly. Everyone, you are too courteous. The middle-aged man raised his hand, and a light that looked like a dragon's claw rushed out. Unfortunately, it was already torn apart in midair by the laws of heaven and earth. The middle-aged man helplessly said, "Please rise." When Yang Xia and Kong Chang stood up, the middle-aged man smiled and said to Taoist Master Shiyu, "You must be Taoist Master Shiyu of the Chongxi sect, right?" This junior is indeed Shiyu. Taoist Master Shiyu bowed again and said, "Greetings, Lord Dragon God. You all didn't forget your original intentions and returned to the Heaven Alliance. I am relieved." Dragon God smiled and said, "With you as an example, there will definitely be more seeds of the Heaven Alliance returning from the Tao Alliance. Your contribution is not small." I don't dare. This is what this junior should do. Although Taoist Master Shiyu was a famous late-stage Mahayana cultivator of the Tao Alliance, he didn't even dare to breathe loudly in front of these supreme cultivators of the Heaven Alliance. It wasn't that he hadn't seen any supreme cultivators before. Wasn't Taoist Master Jiyan one of them? However, the pressure that Dragon God gave off was too strong. Although they were in the heavenly wind forbidden zone, the surging power of heaven and earth couldn't stop this pressure. It's good that you know how to restrain yourself. Dragon God smiled and said, although Taoist Master Jiyan's strength is ordinary, he is really good at teaching disciples. After saying that, Dragon God looked at Elder Peacock and said, Kong Chang, how's the modification of the last 3 realms of the primordial spirit cultivation method? Kong Chang was arrogant when he was fighting with Yang Xia just now. Now that he heard Dragon God's question, he was like a defeated rooster. He lowered his head and said, Lord Alliance Leader, as you know, this old man tried to modify it a little. However, when I asked my disciples to try it, they found that it was very different from what Taoist Jiang had modified previously. This Taoist Jiang is really amazing. Dragon God sighed and said, after he appeared in Tong Lake City, there was no news about him. Even if my disciples of the Heaven Alliance searched 100,000 miles, they couldn't find him. Yang Xia smiled and said, Taoist Jiang is an expert. If he doesn't want others to know, how can ordinary disciples find him? Where's the Holy Mother of Earth Spirit? Dragon God seemed to have thought of something when he heard that. He looked around and asked, why isn't she here yet? When she took away the primordial spirit cultivation method that day, she promised me that she would be able to find Taoist Zhang Xiaohua's trace. Kong Chang curled his lips and said, humph, with her psychic technique she might be able to find some combination stage or void refinement stage cultivators, but I'm afraid she won't be able to find Taoist Zhang. She's probably too ashamed to come. As soon as Kong Chang finished speaking, a strange wind blew from the bottom of the space. Strings of spiritual light gushed out like bubbles. These spiritual light wavered under the force of the hurricane and the wind. However, all the spiritual light looked like an ethereal human figure from afar. When the spiritual light in the center of the human figure shone brightly like stars, all the spiritual light instantly condensed into an ethereal female figure. A voice that sounded like the sound of nature rang out, who's talking bad about others behind their backs? Swat. Kong Chang's lips curled into a smile. Who's talking about you today? I was just talking about the beauty of the Holy Mother of Earth Spirit, and you're here. You're too easy to talk about. The Holy Mother of Earth Spirit's body was surrounded by spiritual light, and her appearance was also covered by spiritual light. However, her spiritual body was thousands of feet tall, and anyone could tell that she was a peerless beauty. When the Holy Mother of Earth Spirit heard Kong Chang's flattery, she coldly snorted and said, since you've admitted defeat, I won't lower myself to your level. Be careful today, you might have a bloody disaster. No way. Kong Chang was shocked and shouted, we came together. Why would I have a bloody disaster but you don't? Because you're talking bad about others behind their backs. The Holy Mother of Earth Spirit pursed her lips and smiled, then bowed to Dragon God and said, greetings, Alliance Leader. You're too courteous. Holy Mother of Earth Spirit, I wonder how your spirit communication technique reacted? Dragon God was still more concerned about Xiaohua's whereabouts and hurriedly asked. The Holy Mother of Earth Spirit shook her head and said, fellow Zhang has the ability of a celestial being. Everything about him has been reversed and I can't find out. Ai, what a pity. Dragon God was a little disappointed and sighed. However, the Holy Mother of Earth Spirit changed the topic. I managed to get a verse. Hurry up and say it. Not to mention Long Shenxi, even the rest of the people became spirited and urged. The Holy Mother of Earth Spirit's bright eyes turned and said with a smile, I've searched for him thousands of times, but when I look back, that person is in the waning light. What do you mean? Yang Xia was a little confused. Could it be that we don't have to search anymore? He will naturally appear? That's called wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it without any effort. The Holy Mother of Earth Spirit rebuked, it's scary to be uneducated. Ah, you've been scolded by the Holy Mother, right? Kong Chang laughed and said, in the future before we meet the Holy Mother, we have to read some books first. Haha, you're right. Everyone laughed as if the heavenly wind forbidden land, which was regarded as a place of death by ordinary cultivators, was a place where they could chat, laugh, and drink. We still have to search. The Holy Mother of Earth Spirit explained, from the verse, fellow Zhang should be in the Heaven Alliance. However, his transformation technique is so powerful that we can't recognize him. Even his previous appearance and title weren't real. Perhaps he will only appear if he is touched by our actions? It's fine as long as he's in the Heaven Alliance. Dragon God nodded, I've already ordered the Heaven Alliance disciples to guard the Heaven Sacrificial Abyss. Previously, fellow Zhang gave the Tao Alliance the method of selecting spiritual roots and cultivating spiritual roots. So the Tao Alliance sealed the abyss to prevent these cultivation methods and secret techniques from spreading to the Heaven Alliance. Now that the Heaven Alliance has the complete nascent soul cultivation method, we can't let the Tao Alliance benefit from it. Ahem. Kong Chang coughed and said, Alliance Master fellow Zhang said that he wants us to give the nascent soul cultivation method to the Tao Alliance. What are you doing? You've clearly disobeyed fellow Zhang's orders, so how can you move him? Actually, Yang Xia said, that day in Tong Lake City, there were many spies of the Tao Alliance. They have already obtained the complete cultivation method, but they haven't found a suitable way to send it to the Tao Alliance yet. The Heaven Sacrificial Abyss can block Mahayana cultivators, but what about Tribulation Transcendence cultivators? If Jian Jinren and Old Man Gu Qiong force their way in, our arrangements will be in vain. Well, when this matter is settled, I'll ask the Heaven Alliance disciples to lower their guard. Dragon God thought for a moment and said, I hate Jinren's stinginess. He treated the Heaven Alliance that way, so I gave them a small warning. Heaven and Earth are heartless, treating all things as straw dogs. Mother Earth Spirit sighed and said, since we're all straw dogs, it's better for us to tolerate each other. At this point, Mother Earth Spirit looked around and said curiously, that's not right. Why? Am I not the last one to arrive today? Where's Golden Saint Spiritual Master? He's the most important person in this trip. Why isn't he here yet? What? Golden Saint Spiritual Master? Yang Xia was stunned and said curiously, didn't you say that there will only be 4 of us? Why did you drag Jin Sheng into this? P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qitian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, or give it as a reward. Chapter 4976. The Holy Mother of Earth Spirit was also surprised. She looked at Long Shenxi and then at Yang Xia. Reverend Jin Sheng is going to refine the spiritual weapon. How could he not come? This is very important. Long Shenxi ignored Yang Xia's surprise and the Holy Mother of Earth Spirit's bewilderment. He waved his hand and said, the spiritual weapon refined by Reverend Jin Sheng is related to how to suppress the power of this realm. If he came earlier, I would be worried. Anyway, we agreed to meet in this period of time. Let's wait a few more days. Yang Xia did not ask any more questions. Instead, he frowned and said, Alliance Master, the last time you came to explore the forbidden area, I happened to have something to do and could not come. After that, I got the incantation to activate the spiritual weapon. So I don't understand. How did you find out about this place? Fellow Taoists, what have you discovered? Don't blame me, Yang Xia. Long Shenxi said with a smile, this matter is related to our lifespans, so it's a secret that cannot be leaked. That's why I've given them the order of the Alliance Master. Everything that happened here is not to be written on jade slips. They can only talk about it face to face. Yang Xia smiled, since there are benefits I will not blame them. But since we are here, can you solve my doubts? Damn it, Yang Xia, you are so nosy. Kong Chang said unhappily, why do you care what is here? Since you have the incantation to activate the spiritual weapon, wait a moment. When Reverend Jin Sheng comes, you and I will activate the spiritual weapon together. Won't the mystery be revealed? Now, even if I have a golden lotus in my mouth, I can't tell the truth. I like to hear you talk. Yang Xia smiled and said with it, I have you look. Gij. The Holy Mother of Earth Spirit smiled, Brother Kong, you should say it again. I also want to hear it. Tisk? Kong Chang curled his lips and said, don't you want to know the cultivation secrets of my peacock manor? I might as well tell you. Even if I tell you, you don't have the bloodline of the 5-colored peacock. You can't imitate it. Then tell me. Yang Xia squinted his eyes and smiled like an old fox. Kong Chang glared at Yang Xia and said, my peacock manners, array formation has been used for many years. Ahem, fellow Taoist Kong? Just as Kong Chang opened his mouth, Yang Xia immediately coughed and said, you're being dishonest, right? The Alliance had asked you to speak, so why are you being so secretive? What kind of formation does your peacock manor have? I just don't want to say the name of this array. Kong Chang stiffened his neck and said, what's wrong? Taoist Master Shiyu was a little dumbfounded. He didn't expect that the 2 supreme cultivators of the Heaven Alliance would actually spout nonsense in this heavenly wind forbidden zone. What made him even more puzzled was that Long Shenxi actually didn't stop them. Instead, he just looked on with a smile. He knew very well that if they were in the Tao Alliance, Taoist Jiyan would have scolded him. Alright, it's up to you whether you want to say it or not. Yang Xia shrugged and said casually. It's up to you whether you want to listen or not. Kong Chang retorted sarcastically. However, he still continued, that array formation has been used for many years. Some of the materials used to set up the array formation have gradually lost their effectiveness. I had no choice but to send disciples to various places in the Heaven Alliance to search for it. However, this material is rare even in the Yilin continent. Therefore, the disciples searched for thousands of years without any results. My goodness, what material is it? Why is it so rare? Yang Xia shouted again. Unfortunately, Kong Chang didn't pay attention to him this time and continued, later on, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth changed. This array formation became even more important to my peacock manor. I had no choice but to personally search for it. My Heaven Alliance's 6 great forbidden zones. Heavenly Wind Forbidden Zone, Sky Splitting Forbidden Zone, Sky Dome Forbidden Zone, Hidden Imprisonment Forbidden Zone, and Soul Shredding Forbidden Zone. I didn't miss a single one of them. I've seen all of them. Why did you specifically look for the 6 great forbidden zones? Yang Xia asked curiously. Hearing that Yang Xia wasn't being sarcastic, Kong Chang thought for a moment and explained, I didn't specifically look for the 6 great forbidden zones. I just happened to pass by here and couldn't help but come and take a look. Fellow Yang, you must know that the 6 great forbidden zones aren't always ravaged by the heavenly wind and realm force. Many times outside of the outer realm will appear. Therefore, I thought that the rare materials might appear in these forbidden zones. In the end, you were like a blind cat running into a dead mouse? Yang Xia asked. Yes, I was just lucky. What about it? Kong Chang smiled and said, that was when the spiritual chi of heaven and earth had just changed. I flew past the heavenly wind forbidden zone. At that time, the heavenly wind forbidden zone's heavenly wind forbidden zone had already calmed down and was far less powerful than it is now. I came over to take a look. However, I didn't find anything after searching for dozens of days. Just as I was about to leave, the heavenly wind forbidden zone suddenly produced realm force. In the broken space law, an aura that I had never encountered before gushed out from the depths of the forbidden zone and instantly enveloped the forbidden zone. This aura was 10,000 times purer than what I was looking for. I was ecstatic and was about to release the 5-colored divine light. However, with the power of heaven and earth pouring out in torrents, how could this old man withstand it? My 5-colored divine light could only collect the aura for about 100 miles. When I tried to find it again, it was gone. I didn't know what that aura was and my 5-colored divine light couldn't keep it for a long time. Therefore, I hurriedly refined it. Kong Chang said and asked again, guess what I found after refining that aura? Damn it, your Kong family's 5-colored divine light is very mysterious. It can sweep away anything of the 5 elements. Who knew that after you refined that aura? Yang Xia said and suddenly exclaimed in surprise, did you find that your lifespan had changed? Yes, that's right. Kong Chang didn't keep them in suspense and explained, when I found out the secret of my lifespan and used the 5-colored divine light here, I was very worried. However, after I refined that aura, I found that my lifespan had not changed. Moreover, my lifespan had been replenished. Damn it, what the hell is this thing? Yang Xia's heart itched when he heard this. I know. Kong Chang said with a smile, with my strength and the power of the Peacock Manor, I'm afraid that I couldn't imprison the heavenly wind in the forbidden land of Tianfeng and uncover the secret of the forbidden land of Tianfeng. Therefore, I went to find the alliance leader. Well, Long Shenxi continued Kong Chang's words, when I received your message, I didn't dare to neglect it. I asked Immortal Jin Sheng to come here with me. However, at that time, the heavenly wind was blowing in the forbidden land of Tianfeng. It was similar to today, so we couldn't explore it. Therefore, I invited the Holy Mother of Earth Spirit, who happened to be in the Heavenly Alliance, and Immortal Jin Sheng to suppress the heavenly wind and find out the truth. Unfortunately, we still failed. We didn't find the thing that Immortal Jin Sheng was talking about. Alliance leader, actually that wasn't a failure. Holy Mother of Earth Spirit said with a smile, we just wanted to see what was going on here. Fellow cultivators, what is this place? Yang Xia didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Holy Mother of Earth Spirit said with a smile, that time you weren't here. Alliance leader and Immortal Jin Sheng suppressed the heavenly wind and let Immortal Jin Sheng and I explore the aura. Although we didn't find the source of the aura, there was still a trace of it. Immortal Jin Sheng still refined that trace of aura, and I used the art of psychic communication to find out that the source of the aura was in the forbidden land of Tianfeng. It was in the realm of the Yilan continent, not outside the realm. Therefore, Taoist Master Jin Sheng proposed that he refine a spirit artifact that we can use together to temporarily suppress or seal the heavenly wind forbidden area and find the spirit artifact that emitted the aura. Kong Chang finally said, fellow Taoist Yang, do you understand now? I understand now. Yang Xia said with a bitter smile, but I still don't understand, what is that spiritual item? It doesn't matter if you don't understand. Holy Mother of Earth Spirit looked at Immortal Shiyu and said, what I want to know is, this matter has been clearly stated in the message that it needs to be kept a secret. Why did you bring your disciple here? Oh, Shiyu just returned to the Heavenly Alliance and didn't have time to visit Alliance leader. Not to mention that he hasn't seen the seniors of the Heavenly Alliance. Yang Xia said with a smile, I was thinking of taking this opportunity to bring him here to meet all of you. In the future, all of you will need to take care of him. Also, I really didn't expect this matter to be so urgent. You really know how to curry favor? Holy Mother of Earth Spirit said with disdain. I can't help it. Who asked me to have such a beloved disciple? Yang Xia said proudly, Even in the Taoist alliance, Shiyu is one of Immortal Ji Yan's favorite disciples. Woo woo. Just as everyone was talking and laughing, another sobbing sound came from another place. Within the violent space fragment, a dark golden color surged out like a flood. That dark golden color was really all-pervasive. As long as there was a gap in the hurricane, the edge of the space fragment would be filled with this dark golden color in a moment. When the dark golden color rushed not far from everyone, clusters of scattered light mixed with pitch-black fog rushed out of the dark golden color and condensed into a cloaked human figure in the wild wind. This human figure was originally an illusion. Under the impact of the realm force, it was riddled with holes. However, as the cracks appeared, black and white netherworld items began to spread out. In just a few breaths, ripples like blood waves appeared outside the cloak of the human figure, and waves of netherworld aura surged out and blocked the realm force. The dark golden light condensed inside the cloak, and a human figure that was hundreds of meters tall stood steadily in the hurricane with flickering flames. Greetings, everyone. When the human figure appeared, a slightly hoarse voice came from the cloak. I'm late. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chidien, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it and reward it. Thank you for all of your support. Chapter 4977. Is this Reverend Jin Sheng? Why haven't I heard of him before? Reverend Shiyu had obviously never seen Reverend Jin Sheng before. Looking at the cloaked figure, he couldn't help but think to himself, why is there such an aura of death around him? Even the heavenly winds of the forbidden grounds withered when they touched his cloak. What kind of cultivation technique is this Reverend Jin Sheng cultivating? It's too strange. The Heaven Alliance is indeed a place where experts come from. It doesn't matter if it's sooner or later. Seeing Reverend Jin Sheng appear, Long Shenxi's heart calmed down. He waved his hand and said, "It's good that you can come." That's right. Holy Mother of Earth Spirit also laughed. We are all idle. Only fellow Taoist Jin Sheng is fully focused on refining. As long as fellow Taoist can come, we are all happy. How would we dare to complain? If it was Yang Xia, Kong Chang would have already asked. But Reverend Jin Sheng was different. Kong Chang didn't dare to provoke him. He subconsciously turned to look at Long Shenxi. Long Shenxi smiled. Since fellow Taoist Jin Sheng is here, I presume that the spirit artifact has already been refined? That's right. Reverend Jin Sheng replied indifferently. I had estimated that this spirit artifact would need to be refined for 49 years before it could be completed. But the change in the heaven and earth spirit chi actually brought it forward by 10 years. I had no idea and specially brought this spirit artifact to the netherworld for the rest of my life. I soaked it in the netherworld's energy and spent close to 100 years. If this spirit artifact is still unable to suppress the energy of the realm and force that thing out, then I feel that there is nothing else in the Yilin continent that can fulfill your wishes. Man proposes, God disposes. Yang Xia laughed. This is all I can do. Whether it can succeed or not, it will still depend on the will of the heavens. Actually, Reverend Jin Sheng hesitated for a moment and asked Kong Chang, I have some questions. I hope fellow Taoist Peacock can answer them. What does Reverend Jin Sheng not understand? Reverend Jin Sheng, please speak. Kong Chang was taken aback and hurriedly replied. It seemed that he was rather afraid of Reverend Jin Sheng. Reverend Jin Sheng asked, I would like to ask, after we have worked for hundreds of years, how much of our lifespan can we obtain this item? Exactly. Upon hearing this, Yang Xia also exclaimed, Fellow Taoist Jin Sheng, just refining this spirit tool will consume an unimaginable amount of your lifespan. Will fellow Taoist Kong be able to make up for it? Don't end up losing more than you gain. Kong Chang smiled wryly, then spread his hands and said, Fellow Taoist Jin Sheng, it's hard for me to answer your question. First of all, I don't know where this aura comes from, and I don't know if it can really make up for my lifespan. Secondly, this thing appeared in the forbidden area, and it seems to be an object from the outside world. Whether we can subdue it is unknown. Therefore, I can't give you a definite answer to your question. However, what I can tell you is that if you can subdue this item, I'll refine the aura it emits into spiritual items so that you can replenish your lifespan. Hearing this, the Holy Mother of Earth Spirit looked at the realm power below her and suddenly said, Alliance leader, do you think there's another realm below this Tianfeng forbidden ground? If that's the case, can we go to other realms through the Tianfeng forbidden ground? Won't we be able to escape the calamity then? Long Shenxi didn't directly answer the Holy Mother of Earth Spirit, but smiled and said, I heard that Tao Alliance's Taoist Ji Yan had already ordered the Tao Alliance's disciples to search the entire Yilin continent to find the spatial passage to other realms. Moreover, I know that Taoist Ji Yan had already explored the 4 forbidden areas of the Tao Alliance after the change in the world's spiritual qi. But why did he still order his disciples to search the entire place after that? At this point, Long Shenxi suddenly looked at Taoist West Moon and said, "Do you know why?" West Moon. Taoist West Moon had been listening the whole time and didn't expect Long Shenxi to suddenly ask him, so he was caught off guard. However, he was also clear about this matter, so after hesitating for a moment he hurriedly replied, "Alliance leader, this junior knows about this matter. I heard that Taoist Ji Yan said that among the 4 forbidden areas of the Tao Alliance, 3 of them have realm power and mutated worldly laws. However, he had once used a great amount of magic power to explore the depths of the forbidden area. However, the mutated worldly laws seem to be of a higher level than our Yilin continent. Even with his late-stage tribulation passing strength, he couldn't get too close. Of course, this wasn't the main reason. The main reason was that the power of the outer realm was like an inverted waterfall, endlessly pouring down. His magic power wasn't enough to support him to go through the power of the outer realm and approach the depths of the forbidden area. Did you hear that? Long Shenxi smiled and said, even with Taoist Ji Yan's strength, he couldn't reach the depths of the 4 forbidden areas, let alone approach the edges of the realms that might exist. I'm afraid it's the same for us, right? Moreover, there's the power of 2 realms at the edges of the realms as well as different worldly laws. Yang Xia nodded and said, that's even more of a test. Unless the power of this realm disappears and a transmission bridge is constructed from here to cross the 2 realms, then it's possible to cross realms. Kong Chang said thoughtfully. But the power of crossing realms will make us feel like we're going to die. Actually, this is all speculation. Long Shenxi waved his hand and said, it's based on the fact that there's another realm below this heavenly wind forbidden area. As for whether it's the netherworld or another realm below, we still don't know. Holy Mother of Earth Spirit, speaking of this, you're the most qualified. When you asked this question, did you sense another realm or another space below? Holy Mother of Earth Spirit sighed and looked up at everyone. She said, actually, to be honest, after I came here with you last time, I came here to explore 3 more times. Otherwise, I wouldn't have asked this question today. Holy Mother of Earth Spirit's words didn't surprise anyone. Long Shenxi smiled and said, and the result? The first time, I used the spirit communication technique here, but the technique didn't have any effect and I was devoured by the power of the realms. Holy Mother of Earth Spirit smiled bitterly and said, so, I had to return to Earth Spirit Mountain to cultivate for 100 years. The second time, I didn't dare to use my spiritual power, and only used my body to sense. Although I didn't sense the spiritual object that Taoist Kong mentioned, I sensed the aura of another realm, which means, below this heavenly wind forbidden area, there should be another realm, not another space. As for the third time, I was disappointed. Although the heaven and earth spirit chi that came from the gap between realms was diluted by the heaven and earth spirit chi of Yilin continent, and was changed by the heaven and earth spirit chi of Yilin continent, but it was still violent. If I'm not wrong, it should be the legendary 10,000 demon realm. Yes. Long Shenxi nodded and said, you're right. Under this heavenly wind forbidden area, if I'm not wrong, it should be tens of millions of years ago. Without waiting for Long Shenxi to finish, Yang Xia seemed to have thought of something and exclaimed, Lord Alliance Leader, the tens of millions of years ago you're talking about. Is it the Xian Alliance that crossed realms? Long Shenxi looked at Yang Xia meaningfully and nodded, that's right, Taoist Yang is right. It's the Xian Alliance that shocked Yilin continent. Senior. Taoist Master Shiyu was not supposed to speak at this time, but seeing the shock on Yang Xia's face, he could not help but ask in a low voice, Xian Alliance? Tens of millions of years ago. My Yilin continent had a Xian Alliance? Sigh. Yang Xia sighed and raised his eyes to look at the chaotic space fragments in the sky. He said in a low voice, who knows how many years ago that was? Tens of millions of years? Seems to be too short. Holy Mother of Earth Spirit also asked curiously, Taoist Yang, quickly tell me, how come I didn't know that there was a Xian Alliance before Yilin continent? My Yilin continent has a Tao Alliance that cultivates the nascent soul and a Heaven Alliance that cultivates the primordial spirit. How could there not be a Xian Alliance that cultivates the 9 transformation golden core? Yang Xia's tone was a little complicated as he explained, according to what I know, the Xian Alliance's strength was not inferior to the Heaven Alliance and Tao Alliance. The cultivators who cultivated the 9 transformation golden core, were not less than the cultivators who cultivated the other two techniques. However, after the Shen Alliance crossed over, the Shen Alliance disappeared from the Yilan continent. As for the cultivators who cultivated the 9 transformation golden core, there were only a few left. Speaking till here, Yang Xia glanced at Long Shenxi and said, Lord Alliance Master, I only know that the Shen Alliance had a huge opportunity and could go to other realms. After that, I don't have much information. As for the specific secrets, I'll have to ask Lord Alliance Master to tell me. Long Shenxi nodded and replied, actually it's not really a secret. After all, tens of millions of years have passed. Of course, because it's been too long, if Taoist Kong didn't discover the spiritual item in this heavenly wind forbidden land, I definitely wouldn't have remembered that the Shen Alliance crossed over. Lord Alliance Master, quickly tell me? Holy Mother of Earth Spirit was extremely curious and urged, what exactly is going on with the Shen Alliance crossing over? The cause of this matter is very simple. Long Shenxi said, back then in the Yilan continent, the Heaven Alliance, Tao Alliance, and Shen Alliance all called themselves the Orthodox Taoism. The battle between the 3 alliances was even more intense than the battle between the Heaven Alliance and the Tao Alliance. Since it was the 3 alliances, it was naturally normal for them to work together. At that time, the Heaven Alliance and the Tao Alliance worked together to attack the Shen Alliance. The Shen Alliance was suppressed to the point that they were forced to hide near the heavenly wind forbidden land. It was also a coincidence that the Alliance Master of the Shen Alliance, called Mei something, obtained a spiritual treasure. This spiritual treasure was different from ordinary spiritual treasures. It didn't have any offensive or defensive abilities, but it had the special ability to open a space tunnel. No one knew how Alliance Master Mei discovered the power of this realm. The Heaven Alliance also didn't have any special records. It only recorded that Alliance Master Mei of the Shen Alliance successfully refined the spiritual treasure and opened the door of the realm. She then sent all the cultivators of the Shen Alliance from the Yilan continent to the so-called 10,000 demon realm, a realm where demons live. She sent all the cultivators of the Shen Alliance to the 10,000 demon realm? Kong Chang was dumbfounded and exclaimed, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and... Chapter 4978. Of course not all the cultivators. If all the cultivators of the Profound Alliance had left, how could the Yilan continent still have the 9 transformations golden core cultivation technique? Long Shenxi laughed. However, even if not all the cultivators had left, most of them had left. Because after the space passage opened, the cultivators who cultivated the 9 transformation golden core all felt that the heaven and earth spiritual energy of the 10,000 demon realm was suitable for their cultivation. Only a small number of cultivators who did not want to leave their homeland stayed. And the result? Holy Mother of Earth Spirit asked, is the Shen Alliance of the 10,000 demon realm particularly powerful now? The Shen Alliance of the 10,000 demon realm was destroyed long ago. Reverend Jin Sheng, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke. How is that possible? Holy Mother of Earth Spirit said anxiously, that is the Shen Alliance, the same existence as the Heaven Alliance. And who told you they were destroyed? Reverend Jin Sheng said coldly, the 10,000 demon realm, as the name suggests, is the 10,000 demon realm. In a world where demons roam freely, can the human race survive? We can't cross the realm, not because we don't have the strength to cross the realm. It's because we haven't found the space passage to cross the realm. If there is a stable passage, we can cross the realm. But what about after crossing the realm? We are facing a different world, a different heaven and earth spirit chi, and a different enemy. Are we confident that we can survive? Reverend Jin Sheng is right. Long Shenxi said, for thousands of years, many seniors of the Heaven Alliance and even the Tao Alliance had the opportunity to cross the realm to the 10,000 demon realm. Of course, many seniors could not return safely, but there were some who returned. According to these seniors who returned, they had never seen the human race in the 10,000 demon realm, and there were seniors who were injured by the great saints of the demon race. According to these great saints of the demon race, 20 to 30% of the humans who moved to the 10,000 demon realm died in some wasteland. Most of them went to the place where the demon race gathered and built their own foundation. But the human race was an outsider after all. Although the Shen Alliance cultivators fought tenaciously and tried their best to survive, after tens of thousands of years, these cultivators were still killed by the demon race. Not many of them were left. Of course, the specific situation is unknown, even the great saints of the 10,000 demon realm may not know. Taoist Master Jin Sheng said, but from then on, the 10,000 demon realm became a taboo of the Tao sects, and no one mentioned it again. As he spoke, Reverend Jin Sheng looked down at the bottom of the Forbidden Grounds and continued, "So, Holy Mother of Earth Spirit, even if you sense that the Forbidden Grounds is the demon realm, I'm afraid we can't casually enter." Holy Mother Earth Spirit hesitated for a moment before asking, Then why didn't Senior Mei return to the Yilin continent? How can crossing realms be as easy as we think? Using spirit treasures to lure Profound Alliance cultivators across realms is not a divine ability that we know of. Long Shensi smiled bitterly. Besides, there's no turning back. Since we're already in the 10,000 demon realm, it's almost impossible to come back. However, the Holy Mother of Earth Spirit still shook her head and said, "Lord Alliance Leader, times have changed. Previously, we did not dare to cross the border because the Yilin continent had a way to survive. But now that the Chi of Heaven and Earth has changed, our cultivation path has been blocked. If there is a chance, we can go to the demon realm. 1 or 2 cultivators are courting death." Long Shensi laughed, "Unless we take Senior Mei's space spirit treasure. All the cultivators of the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance will move into the demon realm." Yang Xia smiled bitterly and said, "Can this old man say? Lord Alliance Master, are you daydreaming?" "Ah, of course. Long Shensi clapped his hands and laughed. "I mentioned Profound Alliances crossing to remind everyone that crossing realms is not an easy thing. Unless it's a desperate situation, it's better not to think about it. Forget it, fellow Taoist Jin Sheng, take out your spirit weapon. Although we're not crossing realms, we still have to suppress the power of this realm. Fellow Taoists." Reverend Jin Sheng heard and said, "I've already refined the spirit weapon. I wonder if you're familiar with the technique to activate it?" Holy Mother of Earth Spirit curled her lips and said, "Reverend Jin Sheng, although you're one of the few cultivators in the Heaven Alliance who can refine spirit weapons, you don't have to look down on us like this, right? We all have our own spirit weapons." Hee. Reverend Jin Sheng smiled slightly. With a wave of his cloak, several fist-sized green light balls fell in front of Long Shensi, Kong Chang, Yang Xia, and Holy Mother of Earth Spirit. Although the Heaven Wind Forbidden Land was howling and the power of the realm was surging, the green light was not extinguished by the power of heaven and earth. Instead, it was even brighter. Reverend Jin Sheng said proudly, "The spirit weapon I'm refining today is different from what you know. So if you haven't familiarized yourself with the technique, I advise you to familiarize yourself with this spirit weapon first." Hiss. Seeing a strange spirit weapon a few inches in size appear in the green light ball, Holy Mother of Earth Spirit couldn't help but gasp and exclaim, "Reverend Jin Sheng, this isn't my Tao sect spirit weapon." Kong Chang also fixed his eyes on it. Sure enough, the strange spirit weapon was like a strange beast. The strange beast's body was like a tiger, but this tiger had 8 heads, and each head was in the shape of a human. What's more, there were actually 10 tails at the end of the tiger. Moreover, the light of this spirit weapon flickered, and a kind of magnificence that could suck people's souls appeared strangely. Occasionally, the hurricane would pass through the light and blow on the spirit weapon, and the spirit weapon would twist as if it was alive, and a whistling sound that pierced straight into the Naiwan Palace was instantly produced. "This is a soul weapon." Yang Xia cried out and pointed at the strange beast. "This is the great Wu Shaman of Wuming Mountain." Fellow cultivators. Reverend Jin Sheng's expression couldn't be seen, but his voice was clearly filled with arrogance. He said, "Don't be blinded by one leaf. This spirit weapon looks similar to a soul weapon, but in fact I'm just borrowing the body of the great Wind Shaman, and using my Tao sect's method of refining spirit weapons to refine the core. In essence, it's still my Tao sect's spirit weapon." Long Shensi waved his hand and took the spirit weapon. The dark green brilliance on the spirit weapon immediately covered his right hand like ink, but Long Shensi could clearly see that under the dark green brilliance, strands of golden threads were as warm as the sun. Long Shensi activated his magic power according to the method given by Reverend Jin Sheng. Buzz buzz. A series of rumbling sounds came from the spirit weapon, and the great Wu Shaman's body suddenly expanded. Long Shensi felt as if the hurricane within a few miles to the left was under his control. "Good." Long Shensi praised, "Fellow cultivator Jin Sheng's refining technique is indeed amazing." "Thank you for the praise, Lord Alliance Leader." Reverend Jin Sheng replied indifferently and said to Yang Xia and the others, "Everyone, familiarize yourselves with the spirit weapon first. Wait for me to observe the wind and the power of the realm in this Heaven Wind Forbidden Land, then we'll activate the spirit weapon together to suppress it." Kong Chang, the Earth Spirit Holy Mother Yang Xia, and the others did not dare to delay. They hurriedly activated their magic power to familiarize themselves with their respective spirit weapons. while Reverend Jin Sheng activated his body. His cloak was filled with strands of black qi, and he rushed to the bottom of the forbidden land. Senior. Reverend Shiyu saw that everyone had something important to do, and hurriedly said in a low voice, "It seems that today's matter is very important. Junior's strength is too low. If I stay here any longer, I'm afraid I'll affect your important matter." "That's true." Yang Xia looked at everyone who was waiting for him and nodded, "I'll send you out." However, just as Yang Xia was about to activate his body, Long Shenxi raised his eyes and looked at Reverend Shiyu, frowning. "Fellow Cultivator Yang, we're about to make a move. Why do you want to create another problem? Let Shiyu stay here. No matter what, he's still at the late stage of the Great Ascension realm. If anything happens later, he can help." "Yes, I understand." Yang Xia thought for a moment, nodded, and then said to Reverend Shiyu, "Shiyu, there's no need for you to do anything. You only need to wait here. If anything happens, you can lend a hand and wait for me." "Yes, Junior understands." Reverend Shiyu was somewhat helpless. He looked around, raised his hand, and waved. A magic treasure that looked like a jade plate flew into the air and covered his body. He said, "I'm afraid that Senior will activate this spirit treasure in a while. Junior will wait by the side." "All right." Yang Xia exhorted again, "This heavenly wind forbidden land is extremely dangerous. Don't be careless and don't go too far away from me." "Junior understands." Reverend Shiyu replied and activated his body to stay 100 feet away from Yang Xia. He didn't dare to fly too far away. He had followed Yang Xia deep into the core of this heavenly wind forbidden land. Along the way he had seen many wind tunnels and other things. He knew that with his great ascension realm cultivation, it wasn't enough to deal with these dangers. After a full meal, Reverend Jin Sheng flew out from the depths of the hurricane and the laws of heaven and earth. The cloak around his body had dimmed a lot. "Everyone?" Reverend Jin Sheng looked around at everyone and said, "Are you all familiar with the techniques and spirit treasures?" "Of course." Kong Chang and the others didn't dare to be negligent, and they all answered seriously. Everyone was a supreme cultivator in the late stage of tribulation passing realm. Reverend Jin Sheng's words were merely an order, a reminder, and a preparation. After hearing everyone's answer, Reverend Jin Sheng raised his hand. A spirit treasure that was a few feet in size was taken out. Aside from the size, the style of this spirit treasure was exactly the same as the ones everyone was using. As Taoist Master Jin Sheng formed a hand seal, the spirit treasure soared into the sky, emitting a monstrous aura that enveloped an area of 100 miles. The spirit treasures in everyone's hands also emitted a rumbling sound as they fled into the distance. "Set up the formation." Long Shenxi roared and his figure quickly retreated. Yang Xia, Kong Chang, and the Holy Mother of Earth Spirit also flew in the direction of the spirit treasures in their hands. In just a short moment, the four of them stood in the four directions of east, west, north, and south. As they formed hand seals and activated their magic power, their respective spirit treasures also soared into the sky. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Thank you for all forms of support. Thank you for the support represented by Reverend Xiao and the other fellow Taoists. Chapter 4979. Quick. The five of them chanted the incantation in unison. Rumble. Loud rumbling sounds could be heard from the 5 Tianwu spirit treasures. The dazzling rings of light appeared one after another, and the spirit treasures expanded rapidly. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the Tianwu spirit treasure in the center had expanded to several hundred zhang tall, and the other Tianwu spirit treasures around it had expanded to several hundred zhang tall. Every spirit treasure emitted many rings of light, and as the rings of light flashed, they controlled the heavenly wind and even the shattered space. The terrifying hurricanes and shock waves from before were slowly being tamed. Not only that, the rings of light rotated and intertwined with each other, surging towards the Tianwu spirit treasure. Gradually they formed a huge ring of light. Although this ring of light was not fully formed, it had already enveloped the core of the heavenly wind forbidden land. Under the demonic green light, the heavenly wind in the heavenly wind forbidden land began to calm down. Seeing that the ring of light was about to form, Taoist Master Jin Sheng's figure soared into the sky and landed below the Tianwu spirit treasure. Following the incantation, Taoist Master Jin Sheng's body flashed with dark green lightning. His entire body slowly expanded until it was more than 3,000 zhang tall. He was like a god. "Everyone?" Taoist Master Jin Sheng opened his mouth, and his voice was like thunder. "Everyone give it your all. Success or failure depends on this. Roar? Long Shensi and the other three roared in unison. Ignoring the loss of their lifespan, they circulated their magic power. Boom 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 boom. 4 earth-shattering sounds rang out, and the 4 Tianwu spirit treasures emitted powerful rings of light like stars. The 4 rings of light rushed towards the Tianwu spirit treasure in the center. Wherever the 4 rings of light passed, the scattered light from before was swept away. An absolute sealing force gradually formed below Taoist Master Jin Sheng's body. Ku. Seeing that the 4 halos were about to reach him, Taoist Master Jin Sheng roared and uttered a strange syllable. Then, the dark green lightning around his body surged from his feet and rushed straight to the top of his head. When it reached the top of his head, Taoist Master Jin Sheng raised his hands and formed a seal at the same time. A dark green lightning ring appeared in his hands. Finally, Taoist Master Jin Sheng's hands landed on the Tianwu spirit treasure's 8 heads. Boom! Lightning flashed and thunder roared. A huge halo was born from the Tianwu spirit treasure. At the same time, the halos from the 4 guardian spirit treasures also flew over and merged together. Buzz buzz. The halo suddenly descended from the Tianwu spirit treasure and flew towards the forbidden land of Tianfeng. A power that could seal the sky and earth came out of the halo and covered the forbidden land of Tianfeng. The forbidden land of Tianfeng was covered by the halo. The forbidden land of Tianfeng was covered by the halo. The forbidden land of Tianfeng and the forbidden land of Tianfeng stopped. The forbidden land of Tianfeng and the forbidden land of Tianfeng stopped. Soon, a glittering and magnificent crack in the interface was about to be revealed. Under the magnificent light, the previously awe-inspiring Reverend Jin Sheng's Dharma body rapidly shrank, as if it had consumed too much of its Dharma power. That's it, that's it. Suddenly Kong Chang, who had been staring at the halo without blinking, shouted loudly. His body shook, and he gave up the Tianwu spirit treasure and rushed towards the seemingly calm realm crack. Where? Yang Xia was taken aback. He looked at the realm crack in confusion. Although the forbidden land of Tianfeng and the forbidden land of Tianfeng were colliding with each other, colorful lights flashed, and all kinds of terrifying fluctuations were produced, he did not sense the aura that Kong Chang had mentioned earlier. Yang Xia shouted in a low voice, somewhat surprised. At the same time, the corner of Reverend Shiyu's mouth twitched faintly. An indescribable expression appeared in his eyes. Boom. Kong Chang had just moved, but he had not even landed 100 feet. Suddenly, outside the 4 Tianwu spirit treasures, a rumbling sound came from the void. 6 figures flew out like ghosts. 5 of them rushed towards the 5 Tianwu spirit treasures, and the last one rushed towards the realm crack faster than lightning. Not good. Although the 6 figures were fast and everyone's attention was focused on the realm crack, they were not on guard. But after all, everyone was a supreme cultivator. How could they not know that there was a change in the void? Yang Xia cursed inwardly. He reached out his hand to control the Tianwu spirit treasure above his head. But at this moment, the figure flying in front of him had already crossed the void and appeared in front of him. Wasn't it his most familiar enemy, Wanderer Fu Bo? And as itinerant Fu Bo approached, a blob of aqueous light suddenly flew out from his chest. A slender but ferocious-looking mermaid flew out of the aqueous light. She opened her mouth and sent a surge of aqueous light at Yang Xia. The Taoist Alliance? Damn it, why are they here? Yang Xia turned pale with fright. He raised his hand to activate his magic power to deal with the attack. At the same time he hurriedly looked down. He saw that Reverend Ji Yen had already crossed the halo and rushed into the realm crack. It seemed that he had arrived much earlier than Kong Chang. Yang Xia was facing Wanderer Fu Bo. How could the other cultivators of the Heavenly Alliance be lucky? Kong Chang had only flown down 300 meters when the patriarch of the Yi family arrived in the form of light. He waved a jade rui in his hand and blocked Kong Chang's body. The jade rui's light was like a sword, and the tip of the sword could pierce through the void. Even someone as powerful as Kong Chang did not dare to move forward recklessly. He could only wave his hand and a 5-colored light fell and blocked the jade rui. He looked very surprised. The Holy Mother of Earth Spirit was looking at the direction of the halo, but her intuition made her startled when the change occurred. Before Fairy Mo Yun, who was attacking her, could get close to her, a fist-sized green mark on her snow-white left arm suddenly emitted a halo. Other strange objects similar to green vines rushed out of the halo and rushed into the air like a huge net. It was the spiritual plant Yin Yong that the Holy Mother of Earth Spirit had sealed on her left arm. As soon as the Yin Yong appeared, a cold and earthy aura permeated the area within 50 kilometers. Even the spiritual chi of heaven and earth showed signs of being blocked. Without any accident, Fairy Mo Yun crashed into it. Damn it. Fairy Mo Yun cursed in a low voice. She did not want to face this female cultivator with the psychic technique. Unfortunately, she was the only woman among all the cultivators, so she could only choose the Holy Mother of Earth Spirit. Seeing that the Holy Mother of Earth Spirit had released the spiritual plant, she did not dare to be careless. She pointed her left hand and a red golden hammer rushed out. The hammer shadow was like a mountain, and it crashed toward the Yin Yong with a rumble. At the same time, Fairy Mo Yun waved her right sleeve. Quack quack. With a chuckle, a parrot with flame-like feathers flew out. The parrot opened its mouth and laughed. It looked at the Holy Mother of Earth Spirit and teased, "What a beautiful girl." However, with this sound, the parrot flapped its wings. Whoa! Flames gushed out from its wings and ignited the Yin Yong within a few kilometers. The Yin Yong twitched violently as if it was in extreme pain. The Holy Mother of Earth Spirit's body trembled slightly, and an earthy yellow mist gushed out from her body. A heavy aura gushed out from the mist. Long Shenxi was the #1 expert of the Heaven Alliance, so his opponent was naturally Old Man Gu Qiong. Although Old Man Gu Qiong seemed to be slower than Wanderer Fu Bo and the others, he arrived first. When Long Shenxi looked up at the sky, Old Man Gu Qiong's body had already elongated and twisted like a bolt of lightning. In a few breaths of time, he had already approached Long Shenxi. Just as Long Shenxi raised his hands in surprise, layers of blood runes appeared on his wrists and surged toward his body. Roar! Old Man Gu Qiong let out a low roar and raised his hand. A flame shadow that was several acres large rushed out from his hand. It shattered the void and imprisoned the space around Long Shenxi. This imprisonment was a bit strange. As soon as the restriction appeared, tiny flames appeared around Long Shenxi and pierced toward him. The blood runes that looked like they were being washed by spring water began to gradually collapse under the flames, and waves of spiritual power scattered from Long Shenxi's body. Roar! Long Shenxi seemed to be caught off guard, but he let out a roar and his body suddenly expanded. The dragon horn on his head flashed with 9-colored light, and this light broke through the flames and opened up space. A 9-colored dragon rushed out of Long Shenxi's body and pounced toward Old Man Gu Qiong with its claws and fangs. As for Reverend Jin Sheng, because he had activated the Heavenly Wu Spirit Treasure, his body shrank rapidly, and his cloak fluttered slightly in the wind. As the light dimmed, Yu Hongzi arrived on the wind. He didn't even get close to Reverend Jin Sheng as he waved his hands in the air. A gust of wind condensed to form a sword of wind. Following a flash of clear light on Yu Hongzi's arm, the sword of wind suddenly disappeared. When it reappeared a few breaths later, the sword of wind had already pierced Reverend Jin Sheng's back. The space where the sword of wind landed collapsed as a force that could shatter mountains tore Reverend Jin Sheng's cloak out of shape. The 6 supreme cultivators of the Tao Alliance had prepared for a sneak attack, and they had the advantage in numbers. Not only was the spiritual item that the 5 cultivators of the Heavenly Alliance had been looking for going to fall into Reverend Jian's hands, but the 5 cultivators themselves were about to be injured by the cultivators of the Tao Alliance. However, at this moment something strange happened. A cloud of black gas gushed out from the cloak that had been deformed by Yu Hongzi's wind sword, and this black gas turned into the shape of a human face. The facial features of this face were very clear, and it even looked somewhat handsome. The face looked at Yu Hongzi and grinned. "Yu Hongzi, you've been tricked." "What?" When Yu Hongzi saw that he had succeeded and heard such a voice, he could not help but be shocked. However, before he could do anything, the cloak suddenly disappeared, and the face in the black gas was once again hidden. Taoist Master Jin Sheng had already turned around at some point, and in the hand hidden under the cloak, another Heavenly Wu Spirit treasure appeared in front of Yu Hongzi. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, or give it a tip. Thank you for the support represented by Reverend Xiao and other fellow Taoists. Chapter 4980. Why is there another spiritual treasure? Yu Hongzi seemed to have thought of something and his expression changed drastically. Ignoring the wind sword that was about to pierce Reverend Jin Sheng's chest, he shouted, "Fellow cultivators, run. We've fallen into the Heavenly Alliance's ambush." Along with this cry, Yu Hongzi's body disappeared as if it was fading. Now that things have come to this, how can I escape in time? Reverend Jin Sheng looked at the wind sword that was about to pierce his chest and said flatly. He raised his hand and the Heavenly Wu spiritual treasure, which was several feet long, turned into a stream of light and soared into the sky. As the stream of light broke through the sky, the surrounding void was torn apart, and countless black and white shadows danced in the air like small snakes. In this light shadow, the wind sword once again turned into a hurricane and scattered in the air. Boom! The Heavenly Wu Spirit Treasure collided with the huge Heavenly Wu Phantom in the air, and a deafening sound rang out. As this sound rang out, a strange green light rushed out from the Heavenly Wu Spirit Treasure's 10 tails and swept towards the halo that suppressed the power of the realm. This green light fell much faster than the halo and landed on the halo almost as soon as it appeared. Although the green light brushed past Reverend Jiyan, who was falling rapidly, he did not feel anything strange. Of course, Reverend Jiyan knew that he had fallen into the Heavenly Alliance's trap, so he did not dare to stay. As the green light flashed, he also wanted to teleport away while the space was still calm. When the green light landed on the halo, nothing special happened. It merely dyed the entire halo green. However, the moment the halo turned green, it was as if tens of thousands of bulls were roaring at the same time. The green halo suddenly soared into the sky and turned into hundreds of light thorns that pounced on the humans in the sky above the forbidden area. In particular, the realm storm and space force that had been suppressed by the halo gushed out like a volcanic eruption and pushed the light thorns toward Old Man Guqiong and the others. Although Jiyan Jinren and Yu Hongzi had already teleported away, they were still forced out of the void by the power of heaven and earth. Seeing the surging realm storm, everyone's expression changed drastically. Even Xiaohua could not resist this realm storm, so how could Old Man Guqiong and the others survive? In the blink of an eye, the storm had already arrived beneath everyone. The members of the Heavenly Alliance were naturally prepared. They did not need to activate any Dharma power. The Qianwu spiritual treasure above their heads had already shown green brilliance to protect them. Although Yang Xia looked at the soaring realm storm with a puzzled expression, he already understood that there must be a secret that he did not know about. However, when he thought of the secret, Yang Xia thought of another person. Without hesitation he cried out, "Not good, Shiyu!" Taoist Master Shiyu had left Yang Xia earlier and stood outside the Heavenly Wu Spirit Treasure Array formation. At this time the realm storm soared into the sky. With his late Great Ascension realm cultivation, how could he resist it? However, when Yang Xia turned to look at Taoist West Moon, his face became even uglier. This was because Taoist Master Shiyu was standing in the direction that Reverend Jiyan had escaped. Although Reverend Jiyan had not escaped from the realm storm, he was not far away from Taoist Master Shiyu. Unfortunately, the realm storm was too powerful. Before the storm could drown Taoist Master Shiyu, the aftermath of the realm storm had already injured him. If Taoist Master Shiyu had not released a bell-shaped spiritual treasure to protect him, he would have been a cold corpse by now. Even so, Taoist Master Shiyu's spiritual treasure could no longer block the realm storm. The power of the realm storm had already torn apart the bell-shaped spiritual treasure's light shadow and crazily hit the spiritual treasure's body. Taoist Master Shiyu could only protect Taoist Master Shiyu. The two of them were tumbling in the realm storm like bullets. If Taoist Master Shiyu was already in such a state, how could the other cultivators fare any better? When Old Man Guqiong heard Yu Hongzi scream, he did not escape at all. Instead he slapped the top of his head. With a bang, a square fragment rushed out. This fragment slid through the air and turned into a blue stone that was dozens of feet large before falling under Old Man Guqiong's feet. Seeing Old Man Guqiong's quick reaction, Long Shenxi admired him. All of this was his plan. He naturally knew how powerful the realm storm was, so he did not chase after it and only hid under the Qianwu spirit treasure. However, when he saw Old Man Guqiong activate the spirit treasure, he was shocked. Indiscriminate destruction? How did it end up in your hands? Old Man Guqiong did not answer Long Shenxi because the realm storm had already drowned him. Although the indiscriminate destruction spirit treasure protected Old Man Guqiong, no one could match the power of the realm storm, not even Old Man Guqiong. He was like a small boat floating helplessly in the storm. The Yi family ancestor, Wanderer Fu Bo, Yu Hongzi, and Fairy Mo Yun all released their magic treasures and spirit treasures to protect themselves, but they were all injured by the realm storm. Of course, the Qianwu spirit treasure began to shake violently under the impact of the realm storm, and its light became weaker and weaker. Withdraw. Seeing that the Heavenly Wu spirit treasure was unable to hold on any longer, Long Shenxi let out a low roar and raised his hand to point at the Heavenly Wu spirit treasure above his head. Ka ka ka. A series of cracking sounds came from the Heavenly Wu spirit treasure. The 10 tails that were swaying in the storm broke apart inch by inch, and the 8 human faces also shattered into pieces. When the tiger-shaped shell fell off, a golden dragon shape appeared from the core of the Heavenly Wu spirit treasure. Seeing the dragon shape appear, Long Shensi did not dare to be careless. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of essence blood. The moment the essence blood touched the spirit treasure, it immediately seeped into it. Furthermore, the dragon blood dharma body that had hidden in his physical body due to the appearance of the realm storm rushed out again. Roar! Long Shensi's dragon blood dharma body actually left his body and landed in the spiritual treasure. Oh my god! Kong Chang obviously didn't know that there was a dragon-shaped core inside the Jianghu spiritual treasure. Moreover, this dragon-shaped core was so ferocious. He couldn't help but cry out in excitement. This is a spiritual treasure that was tailor-made for the Alliance Master. The dragon blood celestial body controlled the dragon-shaped spirit treasure, but it did not rush toward old man Gu Qiong or the realm storm. Instead, it rushed toward the Jianghu spirit treasure that was closest to it. In the realm storm, the dragon-shaped spirit treasure was like a rainbow, and its momentum was unparalleled. In just a moment, the Jianghu spirit treasure was shattered and the 4 dragon-shaped spirit treasures were swallowed by Long Shensi's dragon blood celestial body. Roar! After the 5 dragon-shaped numinous treasures fused into one, they raised their heads and roared angrily. Dragon roars filled the air, and as they roared, the dragon-shaped numinous treasures expanded rapidly. They began to swim rapidly and in an instant, their heads and tails connected. The dragon-shaped spirit treasure flew faster and faster until it finally formed a golden ring. A vast and unparalleled restrictive force was generated again, and Long Shensi's dragon blood celestial body left the dragon-shaped spirit treasure and returned to Long Shensi's body. Buzz! The ring formed by the dragon-shaped spirit treasure fell again and covered the realm storm under the heavenly wind forbidden zone. The magnificent light and shadow appeared again. Now that the realm storm had calmed down, Elder Gu Qiong and the others reappeared above the heavenly wind forbidden zone. Not only were Elder Gu Qiong and Ji Yan in a sorry state, but Yu Hongzi and the others were pale. The confident Long Shensi knew that these cultivators of the Tao Alliance were injured. As for why they didn't escape, he and Elder Gu Qiong knew that it was too late. They might not be able to escape under the full force of the experts of the Heavenly Alliance, so they might as well fight to the death with their numbers. However, Long Shensi still had a smile on his face and said leisurely, Taoist Gu Qiong, how does the realm storm feel? The wind is blowing before the storm. Long Shensi, are you going to make it rain again? Elder Gu Qiong smiled and waved his hand. Ji Yin, the Yi family ancestor, Wanderer Fu Bo, Yu Hongzi and Fairy Mo Yin spread out. The Yi family ancestor charged towards Kong Chang, Wanderer Fu Bo charged towards Yang Xia, Yu Hongzi and Fairy Mo Yin flew towards Holy Mother Earth Spirit, Ji Yin landed in front of Reverend Jin Sheng, and Elder Gu Qiong himself charged towards Long Shensi. Damn it! Why didn't you let the realm storm kill these shameless cultivators of the Tao Alliance? Holy Mother Earth Spirit cursed when she saw Yu Hongzi and Fairy Mo Yun surrounding her. Although Yu Hongzi and Fairy Mo Yun were injured, they were still late-stage tribulation-passing cultivators. How could she be their match? Moreover, she knew that after the two of them joined forces to injure her, they would join forces with another person to attack the other cultivators of the Heavenly Alliance. The Heavenly Alliance was going to suffer today. Long Shensi, I didn't expect you to set up such a trap in the Heavenly Wind Forbidden Zone. Elder Gu Qiong landed in front of Long Shensi and took out a chain-like spiritual weapon. He had a mocking smile on his face. It's a pity that you thought of the beginning but not the end, right? However, I'm very curious. How did you know that we would be here? Fellow Taoist Gu Qiong, you overestimated Taoist Ji Yan's arrangement. Long Shensi leisurely looked at Taoist Shiyu who was hiding in the distance and replied indifferently, although Shiyu is a seed that the Heavenly Alliance placed in the Tao Alliance, he grew up in the Tao Alliance and cultivated in the Tao Alliance. In order to not be discovered by the Tao Alliance, the Heavenly Alliance didn't dare to use any restrictions. Apart from the contact that occurs once every 10 years, the Heavenly Alliance doesn't know what happened to Shiyu. Humans are the strangest thing. After a long time they will forget even their roots. There is a saying in the mortal world, a close neighbor is better than a distant relative. This old man doesn't think that the thin bloodline of the Heavenly Alliance can restrain him from teaching the Chongxi sect. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it and give it a tip. Thank you for the support represented by Taoist Xiao and the other fellow Taoists. Chapter 4981. So you tried to probe Shiyu after he returned? Immortal Ji Yan asked Long Shensi as he stared at Immortal Jin Sheng's shadowy figure under the cloak. At this moment, the dragon-shaped spiritual treasure had covered the realm crack and the heavenly wind had gradually calmed down. Yes, there must have been a lot of probing. But Shiyu is a cultivator in the late stage of the Great Ascension realm. Unless we use some extreme methods, how could we find out the secret in his heart? Long Shensi nodded. But if we used those methods, it would be a waste of Shiyu's Great Ascension realm cultivation. So you spread the news about the Heavenly Wind Forbidden Area? Immortal Ji Yen sighed. Yang Xia also realized what was going on and shouted, Alliance Master, I only said it casually. How could you be so sure it was Shiyu? It's very simple. Long Shensi laughed. Aside from you, all of us knew about this arrangement. That's why we didn't tell anyone. Only Shiyu knew. Thus, if someone from the Dao Alliance came, it was definitely Shiyu who leaked the news. Not necessarily. Although he saw Immortal Ji Yen saving Immortal Shiyu, Yang Xia was still unwilling to believe that it was Immortal Shiyu who leaked the news about the Heavenly Wind Forbidden Area. He said, I didn't keep it a secret. Maybe other people know about it too. Yang Xia, you don't have to rely on luck anymore. Long Shensi said indifferently. The truth is in front of us. Shiyu is a spy sent back by the Dao Alliance. Although he still uses Mei Xuanling's name, he's actually a disciple of the Chongxi sect. Immortal Shiyu heard this from afar and felt extremely embarrassed. He knelt down in the air and kowtowed out. This junior has let senior down. Alas, it's not your fault. Yang Xia seemed to be a little sad. He waved his hand and said, I trusted you too much. The more Yang Xia did not scold Taoist West Moon, the more Taoist West Moon felt as if a knife was being twisted in his heart. After all, ever since the Dao Union returned to the Heaven Union had given him a lot of honor. Yang Xia had also given him a lot of care and concern. These were like invisible poisonous snakes that were devouring his Dao heart. Long Shensi glanced at Taoist Master Shiyu and Yang Xia before looking at old man Gu Qiong. He said coldly, however, this old man knew that you would come to ambush us, so I asked Taoist Master Jin Sheng to refine 2 spiritual treasures to lure you into the trap. I also didn't tell Yang Xia about Taoist Master Jin Sheng. Humph! When I heard the news from West Moon that the 4 of you came to the forbidden area of Heavenly Wind, I knew that there must be more of you. Ji Yen Spiritual Master retorted, that's why I summoned 6 Supreme Cultivators. So, even if our Heavenly Alliance has another Sage Jin Sheng, even if we have injured most of you, we will still fall into your trap? Long Shensi smiled and asked. Upon hearing Long Shensi's question, Ji Yen Spiritual Master's heart skipped a beat. He knew that this was not good, but he had used a secret skill to ambush old man Gu Qiong in the void. When they appeared later, they did not find other cultivators of the Heavenly Alliance nearby. Could it be that the Heavenly Alliance had other ambushes? Haha. At this moment, a strange laughter came from Taoist Master Jin Sheng's cloak again. The cloak was lifted, and a thin cultivator with a pale face flew out from the black smoke. There was an indescribable sneer on his face. Bright Moon Householder? Ji Yen Spiritual Master's face turned pale when he saw this cultivator, who was at the Unifying Path Primordial Spirit Realm. He did not dare to stand still in the air anymore. He quickly retreated and exclaimed, When did you come out of seclusion? Since you have come to the Heavenly Alliance's Heavenly Wind Forbidden Area, as the Deputy Alliance Leader of the Heavenly Alliance, how can I not come out of seclusion to welcome you? Go. The cultivator named Bright Moon Householder said coldly. After he stepped out, he did not give Ji Yen any chance to catch his breath. His whole body emitted bright moonlight and he waved his hand. A side-shaped spiritual treasure broke through the air and turned into a dazzling light that was 10,000 feet long as it slashed toward Ji Yen's Spiritual Master. The brilliant light was so cold and sharp that even the heavenly wind couldn't block its killing intent. The brilliant light split open the space and was about to land on Reverend Ji Yan's bell-shaped spirit artifact. However, the bell-shaped spirit artifact also created layers of afterimages and blocked the surrounding space. Long Shensi and the others roared when they saw Bright Moon Householder attacking. Taoist Master Jin Sheng even moved his body to help the Holy Mother of Earth Spirit. A great battle between the supreme cultivators of the Heavenly Alliance and the Heavenly Alliance was about to break out. Wait. Right at this moment, a voice suddenly rang out. Then with a loud bang the earth and the mountains shook. Violent waves of air came from outside the area where they were facing each other. They rushed toward the crowd and instantly annihilated them. In the midst of the waves of air, the crowd did not dare to attack rashly. They all activated their spiritual weapons and spiritual treasures to defend themselves. Then they looked toward the source of the waves of air with puzzlement. However, when they saw the situation in front of them, they were all dumbfounded. They saw that the source of the sound was where Reverend Shiyu had been standing. However, at this moment, Reverend Shiyu did not look like a human anymore. A medium-sized void crack was slowly closing there, and Reverend Shiyu's badly mutilated body was struggling to float on the side of the void crack. Shiyu. Jiyan spiritual master looked at him and said in shock, "Why did you explode your nascent soul?" Martial ancestor. Reverend Shiyu's head was already damaged. However, he still stubbornly said, "I was unfilial. I hid it from you since I was young. When you found out my secret, you did not kill me. Instead, you taught me personally. Although I know that you used me to fight against the Heaven Alliance, I am still grateful. After all, without your guidance, I could not have reached the late stage of the Great Vehicle Realm. However, I'm still a descendant of the Heaven Alliance. I don't want to betray my ancestors, so I completed my ancestors' mission and returned the Tao Alliance's nascent soul to the Tao Alliance. I don't owe the Tao Alliance anything." Child? Jiyan spiritual master bit his lips lightly. With tears in his eyes, he said in a low voice, "Why did you do this? Although I used you, didn't I make it clear that day? If you don't want to do it, you can do nothing. This old man really treats you as his own nephew." Unfortunately, Immortal Shiyu did not answer him. Instead, he looked at Wuxia with difficulty and said, "Senior, although Junior has returned to the Heavenly Alliance and received many courteous treatment, and also felt the warmth of a descendant of the bloodline, but this warmth and courteous treatment really can't evoke Junior's old memories. I know that I have the bloodline of the Heaven Alliance, but I was raised by the Tao Alliance. I look at the smiles on the faces of the Heaven Alliance brothers, but I also think of the Tao Alliance brothers' concern for me. It's so hard for me. However, I've brought the Tao arts of the Chongyun sect and deceived the Tao Alliance's founding ancestor. I can be considered to have not let down the Heaven Alliance. After that, I'll return the Heaven Alliance's flesh and blood to the Heaven Alliance, and I won't owe the Heaven Alliance anything in the future." Child? Wuxia was already sad. Now that he saw Immortal Shiyu in such a state, how could he not know that it was the Heaven Alliance and Tao Alliance's coercion that had forced this peerless cultivator into a dead end? When he heard this, he felt as if a knife had been twisted in his heart. He abandoned Wanderer Fu Bo and landed beside Immortal Shiyu's body in a flash. He carefully supported Immortal Shiyu and said in pain, "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have brought you here." Long Shensi and Old Man Gu Qiong's expressions changed slightly. After all, he was already a late-stage Mahayana cultivator. If his Tao heart had not been so damaged, he would not have detonated his nascent soul to cut off his escape route. Seniors of the Tao Alliance and Heaven Alliance. Immortal Shiyu ignored Wuxia and continued, "When I returned to the Heaven Alliance from the Tao Alliance, I heard that a senior named Zhang Xiaohua had appeared on the Yilin continent. In his eyes, there was no difference between the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance. There was only the two words, Tao Sect, and the importance of Tao Sect's inheritance. In order to pass down the inheritance of our Tao Sect's Xanhua under the changes in the heaven and earth spiritual qi, he personally modified the nascent soul cultivation technique and the primordial spirit cultivation technique. He even publicized the two cultivation techniques to the world. If he could see it, how could you not see it? The great tribulation of heaven and earth is coming. If our Heaven Alliance and Tao Alliance still cannot work together to break the seal of the heaven sacrificial abyss, our Tao sect, how can we still exist on the Yilin continent? I'm only a junior. I'm not standing high and cannot see far. I can only say so much. Whether you listen or not, it is up to you seniors. I hope that in my next life, I can reincarnate in a world without the Heaven Alliance and the Tao Alliance. I only want to live a happy life and cultivate painstakingly. My life and cultivation can be for the human race or for my own world. However, I do not want to be in any Tao sect." At this point, Immortal Shiyu actually could not catch his breath and was unable to continue. Wuxia hastily took out a golden core from his bosom and sent it into Taoist Master West Moon's mouth. After a few breaths, Taoist Master West Moon's broken face flushed red again. He looked at Wuxia and shook his head. "Senior, don't save Junior anymore. Junior's Tao heart is already broken. I no longer have any value in this world. Moreover, there are probably tens of millions of disciples just like me, and their Tao hearts can't possibly be perfect as well. Seniors, if you really feel sorry for your disciples, then listen to me and stop." Alas. Long Shensi, Gu Qiong Old Man, Bright Moon Householder, and Reverend Jiyan were ready to fight to the death today. However, when they heard Reverend Shiyu's heartfelt words before his death, they were all moved. They looked at each other and sighed. Although they couldn't let down their guard, they moved their bodies and gradually separated. You can thank you for the support represented by Immortal Shao and other fellow Taoists. Chapter 4982. How could the people of the Heaven Alliance and the Tao Alliance not think of giving up? This was especially true after the spiritual chi of heaven and earth appeared. However, after years of hostility, they had long become accustomed to it. The plan that they had set up for thousands of years would occasionally yield results. When the plan was effective, how could they be willing to let their years of hard work go to waste? What they lacked was an opportunity to discuss face-to-face, an opportunity to reach a compromise, and a way to retreat together. Xiao Hua's appearance, the announcement of the spiritual root selection method and the spiritual root cultivation method, and Taoist West Moon's self-destruction and dying words had all contributed to this. The alliance masters of the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance, as well as the supreme cultivators, had begun to size each other up and prepare their words in their hearts. However, in this brief moment of silence before the dawn of peace arrived, absolute darkness suddenly descended. Boom! Another loud sound was heard as Long Shenxi, Old Man Gu Qiong, and the others sighed in their hearts. Just as Taoist West Moon was muttering, Taoist Jin Sheng, who had quietly descended, suddenly rushed toward the golden dragon ring under the heavenly wind forbidden land. His cloaked body suddenly exploded like Taoist West Moon's self-destruction of his nascent soul. The loud sound not only lifted everyone's bodies but also shook the golden dragon ring. Following this loud explosion, a sharp voice rushed into everyone's ears like a sharp sword. Alliance Master Hao Yu, the cultivators of the Tao Alliance have indeed been fooled and have gathered together. I'll open the restriction in the golden dragon ring and use the power of the realm to kill Old Man Ji Yen and the others. When the Tao Alliance falls into the hands of the Heaven Alliance, don't forget our previous agreement. As he spoke, Taoist Jin Sheng's exploded body turned into a huge demonic shadow. Although the demonic shadow's aura dropped rapidly from the late stage of the crossing tribulation realm, it was still in the Demon Emperor realm. The demonic shadow turned into a blood-red light and black gas that rapidly rushed into the golden ring of the dragon image. The blood-red light and black gas were like a treasured saber used to slay dragons. Wherever they fell, the huge golden ring was cut apart. The huge dragon image struggled in pain and quickly retreated. When the golden light and the dragon image disappeared, several demonic auras surged, and a demonic weapon covered in blood-red flames was revealed. This demon artifact was different from the demon artifacts Xiao Hua had seen before. Demonic patterns appeared on it, and after devouring the Demon Emperor's blood shadow and demon chi, they turned into huge demons. These demons soared into the sky and pounced on Venerable Ji Yen and the others with the power of the realm. The scattered demon chi was like ink that dyed the space. Damn it! Seeing this, Venerable Ji Yan's complexion changed greatly. He raised his hand and pointed at Bright Moon Householder, cursing, "Bright Moon, you old thief, I was wondering why you had been in seclusion for so many years. No wonder your Heavenly Alliance sealed off the sacrificial abyss and didn't allow the nascent soul cultivation method to pass to my Tao Alliance. So, your Heavenly Alliance is actually crazy enough to cooperate with the Devil race to exterminate my Tao Alliance? Is your Heavenly Alliance still a branch of my Tao sect? Damn it, Bright Moon Householder naturally wanted to say, we were deceived by Reverend Jin Sheng. No, it's the demon's trick. However, when Bright Moon Householder flew out of Reverend Jin Sheng's cloak, the spiritual treasure refined by Reverend Jin Sheng first turned into a heavenly Wu spiritual treasure, then into a dragon-shaped spiritual treasure, and finally revealed its true appearance. It was a demon artifact. How could Venerable Ji Yen, Old Man Gu Qiong, and the other supreme cultivators of the Tao Alliance not believe that the Heavenly Alliance was cooperating with the Devil race? Moreover, when the demon artifact was born, the demonic flame was already soaring to the sky. Moreover, the realm storm which had been suppressed just now attacked again. How could Bright Moon Householder argue with the power of the realm? How could Long Shenxi and the others explain themselves? Old Man Gu Qiong and the others had already launched their attacks. Old Man Gu Qiong waved the spiritual treasures in his hand like a chain, and a series of dreamlike multicolored lights appeared and covered the demon artifact and the demon artifact as well as Long Shenxi. Roar! Long Shenxi naturally wouldn't resign himself to his fate, and as blood-red light surged around his body, a multicolored golden dragon rushed out. As it roared, it shattered the nearby void. However, when the golden dragon rushed out, the demonic energy in the vicinity rushed into it. Oh no! Long Shenxi turned pale with fright. This was because demonic patterns suddenly covered the golden dragon's body, and a terrifying consciousness followed the dragon blood celestial body and invaded his consciousness. Long Shenxi suddenly realized that when he was controlling the dragon-shaped spiritual treasure, Reverend Jin Sheng's demonic blood had already invaded his bloodline. Damn it. Long Shenxi's consciousness became somewhat fuzzy, and the dragon image, which was controlled by the demonic patterns, danced crazily and expanded. The dragon tail entered the void, and it didn't just disturb the core of the heavenly wind forbidden land, it even affected its borders. At the same time, the multicolored dream of the heavens also invaded the void at the forbidden land's borders. Chaos. The entire heavenly wind forbidden land was in chaos. The realm storm tore through space, and all kinds of spiritual treasures collided with each other with all their might. The power to tear apart mountains and sever rivers was chaotically rushing to every corner of the forbidden land, and a destructive aura poured out from the demonic flames into every corner of the forbidden land. Just as the Taoist sect's supreme experts were engaged in a life-and-death battle, where the demonic dragon image's dragon tail was torn apart, and where the dream of the heavens was filled with multicolored dream of the heavens, a spatial crack suddenly appeared. As the light flickered, Xiaohua stepped through the air with an inexplicably surprised expression. Oh my! Seeing such a chaotic situation, Xiaohua couldn't help but be speechless. For a Netherwind will, for the sake of fighting for the chance to enter the Lost Land, Supremes, you don't have to fight so hard, right? Just as Xiaohua's figure appeared, the chaotic realm force had already engulfed him. The familiar Yilan continent's heaven and earth law and the 10,000 demon realms law of arrays intertwined. Xiaohua's body involuntarily emitted a dark gold color, and slowly expanded. An aura that surpassed the 9th grade origin energy gradually emitted from Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua's words were naturally a joke, because his gaze had already landed on the remains of Taoist Master Shiyu. Previously, when Yang Xia flew to Taoist Master Shiyu's side, he had originally raised his hand to support Taoist Master Shiyu. However, when the demonic shadow appeared from within Taoist Master Jin Sheng's cloak, the situation changed again. The demonic weapon turned into a devil head that was mixed in the realm storm and attacked Wanderer Fu Bo. Wanderer Fu Bo was also furious and attacked in anger. Yang Xia was already busy with his own matters, so how could he still care about Taoist Master Shiyu who was about to die? Therefore, Taoist Master Shiyu's broken body was like a withered leaf in the wind and waves of the realm storm. It was wantonly thrown around and gradually torn apart. Even around his soul that was about to leave his body, there were already a few little devils madly chasing after him. If not for the realm storm blocking them, they would have already pounced over to devour him. This was the final radiance of the setting sun. Taoist Master Shiyu's head that was missing a piece revealed a layer of sickly red. His already muddled mind suddenly became clear for a moment, and when he opened his eyes, he saw Xiaohua's flickering golden body. Senior Zhang? Under the laws of the Yilan continent and the 10,000 demon realm, Xiaohua's golden body expanded. His appearance was actually already blurred. However, Taoist Master Shiyu's mind was connected to Xiaohua's illusion. He shouted, Quickly save my Tao sect senior. Taoist Master Shiyu really wanted to say a few more words and tell the truth of the matter to this Senior Zhang that he had accidentally recognized. Unfortunately, his little bit of life force was completely maintained by Yang Xia's golden core. Now that the golden core's effect had already passed, even if he wanted to say a single word, he couldn't. Seeing Taoist Master Shiyu's eyes collapsing and the halo of hope being annihilated, Xiaohua couldn't help but feel heartache. He released his netherworld origin power and absorbed Taoist Master Shiyu's soul into the inside of the space. He sighed and said, Don't worry. Since this old man is here, I won't let them kill each other again. After absorbing Taoist Master Shiyu's soul, Xiaohua released his divine sense to take a look. Unfortunately, this heavenly wind forbidden land's realm storm had been suppressed several times. Now, it was like a wild horse that had broken free of its reins and was incomparably unruly. It had long surpassed the original heavenly wind forbidden land's range, and its power had increased by several times. Within 10,000 li, the space was completely twisted and all kinds of destructive fluctuations surged out disorderly. Xiaohua's divine sense had just been released, but it was already twisted by these fluctuations and the realm storm. It couldn't go very far. Not to mention Xiaohua's divine sense, even Xiaohua's aura of 10th grade origin power couldn't suppress the whole place like usual under the power of heaven and earth. Fortunately, Xiaohua had already achieved the body of law. He could see a few things clearly with the naked eye. Within the realm storm, the experts of Tao Alliance and Heaven Alliance each occupied a corner. While fighting each other, they were also resisting the realm storm. They were completely focused and didn't dare to slack off in the slightest. They were afraid that they would fall into the realm storm and be taken advantage of by the enemy. Therefore they didn't even notice the appearance of Xiaohua, a great sage of the human race. After Xiaohua saw it, he couldn't help but feel anxious. It was because it was hard to make a choice in the realm of death. Every supreme cultivator would inevitably act recklessly for their own survival. If he hesitated for a moment, there might be cultivators who would die. Therefore Xiaohua roared and waved his hand. The Kunlun mirror appeared in the space. As Xiaohua raised his hand and pointed, the Kunlun mirror expanded rapidly amidst a buzzing sound. On the surface of the Kunlun mirror, a misty light pillar immediately appeared. It crossed the sky and fell to the bottom of the forbidden land of Heaven Wind, where the realm storm rushed out. However, the realm storm was so powerful. When the realm storm hit the light pillar, it tore it apart. When the realm storm hit the Kunlun mirror also shook violently in the realm storm. Its brilliance suddenly decreased. Fellow Taoists, please show yourselves. Seeing this, Xiaohua made up his mind. With a thought, the Thunderbolt Immortal and the other clones flew out from the space. Fellow Taoist Devis. Xiaohua roared, you control the Kunlun mirror and suppress the realm storm. Everyone else, follow I to clean up the mess. Yes, we understand. The clones replied in unison. Their voices didn't travel too far before they were drowned out by the realm storm. However, even though the realm storm drowned out the voices of the clones, it couldn't stop them from reaching the 10th stage of the origin energy realm. In a flash, several clones landed in different parts of the forbidden land of Heaven Wind. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, gift, and thank you for all forms of support. Thank you for the support represented by Taoist Xiao and the other fellow Taoists. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.